Alright, hello gamers, Muckluck here, and today Guild Wars 2 did a live stream about the Janthir Wilds Spear preview, where they are going to be showing off a bunch of stuff related to the upcoming weapons being added to the game. This is a long broadcast. The VOD for it is almost 2 hours long, so I'm going to be speeding it up a little bit, and with the awesome part about watching this in the future is we can fast forward through the boring part, so we can skip ahead and shave some time off of it. I guess if you're watching this on YouTube later, you'll be able to immediately see how long this video is. Yeah, we'll see. I'll timestamp all of the classes so you can jump to the ones you care about. I have already seen memes that Warriors and Revenants are upset. I don't know what about. I've just seen that in meme land. And yeah, all right. So jumping into it. Let's make sure the volume's okay. And then let's skip.
Designer here with Cal Cohen, and we are here to show you the new spears coming in EX5
right,
with
Taylor and
Janthir
Cal.
Wilds. Cal, how are you today?
Great. This is obviously not the balance update preview, but you know, we got some. Obviously, Roy is not here with us today, unfortunately.
Hey, Atlanta Braves.
So
That's near where I
Taylor
live.
is running the stream, and we'll hopefully make it
Don't
work.
stalk me, Jet.
Obviously, if you miss Roy, feel free to leave those comments in Twitch, on social media. You're our best.
Skipping.
Initial information that we'll give you about spears, but now we're going to give you all the information about spears. So we'll go through all the skills, talk about some of the design thoughts behind them. For all 9 spears, Ellie, we're doing it last because there's 26 skills, so anyone who wants to leave at that point can. But the Ellie players, you know, they waited for their blog, and they can wait for their full reveal here. It is a long-ranged damage-dealing weapon.
That's fantastic. He's like, they waited once, and they can do it again.
There are no melee skills. Yeah, let's just hop in. We're going to talk a little bit about... I guess we have some preamble to do. So we have the beta next week, obviously, and we're going to see a couple things that are not completely finalized yet. There's going to be some temporary art, some temporary audio.
I want to apologize for how scratchy his mic sounds. That's just in the recording. It's like peaking a lot, and yeah, I'm not an audio engineer, but even I am picking up on it. I'm just like, wince.
Mostly going through polish, but there's some things that, you know, are going to get a little bit more polished than others. So if you notice those things during the beta, that's very expected. And we're also going to see some temporary UI art as well. Not the art that we had for the last beta with all the construction man icons. We've kind of got a new set of beta icons that we'll show off as we get into the professions that do their best to communicate more information about the skills. They're, you know, generic. We're using them on each profession, but there's stuff for, like, you know, here's a basic melee attack, here's a cone AoE, here's a CC skill. Just so that at a glance you can look at your bar and have a better feeling of what these skills should do, and that should hopefully, you know, make the beta feel a bit better than the last one, where it was more difficult to figure out exactly what skill was which on the bar.
So what he's referring to is in the previous time that they did a weapon beta, there was this icon that was on the weapons. It was like a placeholder icon, and it was just like a construction worker sign of like a guy like digging, I think it was. But it literally just looked like a road sign. And every single icon, every single buff related to the new weapons had that icon. And some of them were blue, some yellow, some purple. And so he's basically saying that they've changed the icons for some of these skills.
Taylor, anything to add before we hop into the spears?
I think that pretty much covers it. So we can get started. Take us in-game. We'll start with...
So glancing down... Oh, Untamed. Nice. Glancing down at the bar at the bottom, I immediately noticed like a sword, probably auto attack. That I'm guessing is like a cone. That's a ranged button. That's a movement skill. This is utility.
Ranger. Go in order of the spear blogs. Pretty sensible order. As you can see on the UI, these are what the new icons look like. What Cal was talking about. Like, this will be a cone ability. This is a ranged ability. Movement.
I'm resisting the urge to pause over every single icon and read it because I'm sure they're going to show it very soon, and then we'll do that.
All the icons have a bit of meaning, so you can like glance down. Like, you can't really encapsulate everything a skill does with just like one icon, and so you know, just because it has a movement doesn't mean it won't CC, for example. But you know, it should help you at least get a better idea when just glancing down at your skill bar. So we can just start looking at Ranger. So the first part is the auto attack, which I know everyone got excited about. It's a new mechanic where it will be melee when you're in melee range, and then ranged at range, so you can hover over.
So something chain. It's got a cripple. If they're far away, use bee sting instead. Heave your spear, gaining swiftness if you strike an enemy. If your enemy is far away, use bee sting instead. I'm guessing bee sting is that. Dude, it's like it's off the top of the screen. I complained about this when I was trying to learn Spectre and Firebrand recently. Is I kept having to go to the wiki for skills because they would be off the top of my monitor and off the bottom of my monitor. And then the ambush is down here and it goes off the bottom, so you can't even see what the ambush does other than the damage and life siphon is on every single ambush, and then there's more utility after. We can't see what the utility is. Okay.
And you can see that when you strike it says that there's a range threshold, and so when you're in the range threshold, it will use these melee skills, but if not, it'll use Bee Sting, which is a range skill. So you can see I walk up to this golem, 1, 2, 3, melee chaining like that, but if I target this golem over here, I'll throw my spear instead, all by using just the 1 key. So other than that, pretty simple, should hopefully feel pretty fluid to use. And so we can move on to the 2 skill.
Not saying any dots.
The 2 skill is going to be Mongoose.
Swipe at enemies in front of you, cleaving them. Wolf's Onslaught is the stealth version of this skill, which slashes enemies in front of you, then follows up with a powerful blow. Both versions do vulnerability. The second one does revealed on you. Okay, so because you're coming out of stealth, so it's going to put revealed on you. Okay.
This is Frenzy base. You can see from the icon, it's going to be more of a cone hitbox.
Second one does double
in front
damage.
Of it. Do some vulnerability in front of you. This is kind of be your bread and butter melee skill. Nothing too complicated here. So moving over to the 3.
I actually like the graphic of that. It reminds me a lot of the Serpent Strike animation in Last Epoch, for anyone who's played that. Wait, I just noticed the name of his freaking dumb lizard is Roy. With his big old googly eyes.
Skill, we have Falcon Stoop. This is going to be like a heavy toss. Kind of like ranged maul almost. Definitely want to dodge it. You can see it has that like powerful glow to look out for. It'll do some damage again.
Fling your spear at an enemy doing heavy damage. Damage is increased against immobilized, disabled, or defiant foes, and cripple. If stealth, owl's flight, the spear will be wider and unblockable and pierces.
Immobilized or CC'd enemies.
Is that an existing pet? Yeah, that's a reef drake, I think. Funny enough, it is able to do a confusion field, but only when you're underwater.
So then we can go to Warclaw's Engage, which is your movement ability.
Or Chaos Field, not Confusion Field. I'm confused.
It's going to be a simple kind of like leap at your enemy. So targeted, leap, boom, engage.
Hold on. Okay. Something, damaging enemies, damage to foes below the threshold. So if they're below 50% health, it does 20% more damage. You are evading for 3/4 of a second during the leap. It is a leap, so it'll do leap combos. If you're stealthed and you do it, it also does daze and 300 CC,
which is your movement
ability.
From the
daze.
It's going to be a simple kind of like leap at your enemy. So targeted, leap, boom.
I love targeted movements. I don't know. Anyone else with me on this? I like targeted movements more with like the reticule so much. Like Ranger Staff 3 is like that. And it's so much easier in like PvP to just be like, throw myself in that direction, or throw myself that way, or throw myself backward if it's a targeting reticule. Because if it's like something that goes to your target, then sometimes I have to like U-turn my character, make sure I click on the ground to lose my target, then I can use Greatsword 3 to swoop away. But I have to make sure I untarget things first. I love when the moves use a reticule like this for just like how it feels.
You can see you got that cool Janthirian Warclaw VFX going on.
Yeah, that's the
as for what it does,
same Warclaw skin that they are adding in Janthir, because we noticed the similarity in some of the previous pictures they did.
It's pretty simple. It does damage, and it has like an execute. So if you like whittle them down from range and then jump in, it'll do a bit more damage. So pretty simple skill. Also has a bit of an evade on top of it, as we have like a lot of our leaps have like a defensive component to make it feel better to engage with. But we can go down to the 5th skill.
Curious where the evade is. Because if you leap a long distance, it might take more than 3/4 of a second to cross that distance. So, is the evade at the front end or the back end of the ability? Example, Greatsword 3 on a ranger, you charge forward and then you do like a leaping strike at the end of, like you run in a line, then leap strike. And the leapy part at the end has an evade on it. The beginning running bit doesn't. Just curious. Panther's Prowl, the 5. Conceal yourself in the brush, gaining stealth. So 5 just stealths you. If you hit the 5 again, it becomes Spiderweb. Throw out a net, damaging and immobilizing enemies on impact. Foes in the net are crippled. Your pet becomes excited for the hunt, gaining super speed for 3 seconds. You throw a net, your pet's like, whoo boy! It does damage, does immobilize, cripple, super speed. Web duration is 4 seconds. Wait, the immobilize is 2 seconds, but the web duration is 4 seconds. Does the net pulse the immobilize?
Panther's Prowl.
Is it like an
After you read
entangling
the
root?
blog, you know, this is where it gets a bit interesting. So this will just stealth you and flip over your skills. They all have their own stealth attack version. And so if we go back down the line, you can stealth, and you'll see that it turns into Wolf's Onslaught, where you'll do the swipes again, and then follow up with a wolf, kind of spirit animal, as you jab. And then we can go down to the third skill, which becomes Owl's Flight. You'll throw your spear again, but it'll be kind of like encapsulated in an owl spirit. It'll become wider and unblockable and pierce, so pretty good, like in World v. World scenarios where there's a lot of enemies, you want to, you know, poke them down at range.
So you can give them the bird.
Pretty simple there. And so then we get to Predator's Ambush, which for Warclaw's Engage was basically the same skill, except you're also going to daze, so this is a CC skill. You know, in PvE, if there's break bar, that's what you're going to be wanting to use your stealth charges on. If not, you can also engage if you want to, you know, give up some damage for a better CC initiation. You can do that as well. And so the last skill is going to be Spider's Web, which is if you use the 5 again after...
I'm curious what the cooldown on going stealth is going to be on this weapon. Right now, during this demonstration, they have, like, no cooldowns on anything, but just curious what it's going to be later on.
After stealthing, you'll throw out a net fashioned like a spider's web to capture enemies. It'll immobilize on the initial hit, and then it'll persist to cripple people that walk over it. It also gives your pet some super speed, so, you know, if you have a melee pet, you're at range, you can throw it out, and it'll move them, and they'll run to it. Or if you're a soul beast, it'll help you run.
I like the persisting for a few seconds thing. Reminds me of the muddy terrain skill, which does not see a lot of action in gameplay. There's a few niche situations, but it's a fun skill, but it's just, it has a lot of competition for your utility slots.
Into it too. So pretty good, pretty fun. So yeah, that's kind of the concept of the weapon. You know, you have like your melee skill, range skill, initiation. With your auto attack, you're able to just like auto at range, then, you know, whittle them down. And then they get low, you could like jump in, do that.
It said 10-second recharge on the tooltip. Oh, right on. I missed it.
At any point, if you want to empower or to kite away, you can stealth, then re-engage with a more powerful skill. And then I'm already an Untamed, so the Untamed Ambush is kind of like a conal sweep. You just big AoE damage. Yep. So pretty good for, again, like those AoE cleave, World v. World scenarios, to just like throw it out.
Looked like it left poison on him too.
So yeah. It's aimed to be
It's interesting, there's no Condi anywhere on the weapon, but then the Untamed Ambush does poison. Now, granted, a power build that has poison is certainly not bad. If you can, you know, in PvP, just whether the poison does damage or not, it does a healing debuff, which is really nice. In PvE, though, it's just like, does it do damage or does it not?
pretty versatile weapon. You know, you can do a lot with it, whatever you want to do. Power DPS focused, I think. Covered it, now I'm kind of rambling. Can you think of anything, Cal, I need to mention about this weapon?
No, I think you covered it. The stuff.
Let's see
Taylor did a lot of work on this weapon, so it's probably perfect. As usual.
See,
Don't have a whole lot to add.
Awesome. So we can...
So, really quick, let's back up for a minute here. So, I'm a Ranger main. I'll probably have more to say about this weapon than any of them so far. Thoughts on this? Nothing about this weapon does anything that I saw related to keeping boons up or support on the team. So, at the very least, I don't think Heal Druid or Heal Untamed would touch this for any reason. In PvE DPS, it's all going to matter how much damage it does once we get a hold of it and we try it on a golem, and then that will determine, like, can I replace my current weapon with this when I do fractals, when I do strikes, etc., etc. If it is at least breaking even with some of the current things that we use, such as like sword axe combo or great sword, or maces or hammer, if it's at least keeping up with them, then it will probably see some gameplay because of the ranged option. If it can keep up with them in damage and then it's also ranged, great. you know? Even if it's like, you know, let's like 1k, 2k less, it might still see some action by people that just prefer it because it'll be melee and ranged both. And that can be pretty cool. In PvP, again, it's going to depend. It's basically power. It's going to depend how bursty it is. But it's definitely got some cool stuff. It's got the stealth. It's got a movement skill with a reticule, which I personally like. It's got a immobilize, cripple, and then damage. And then it's just how much damage. Is it enough damage? So I think those are the builds that might consider this.
See,
I don't have a whole lot to add.
Awesome. So we can take a look at Necromancer next.
Some people are saying that the cameras are too big too on the gameplay screen.
Okay, I can.
If you want to mess around with that.
They don't like looking at us. Like we're not.
Since Cal just said that to Taylor, I'm guessing they're in like a Discord call type of thing, and Taylor is the one broadcasting the stream to the Guild Wars 2 Twitch, and then Cal is just like in like a video call with him. So Taylor's got like a screen capture on both of them.
We're not the main.
I've done that on my streams before.
No, back in my day,
like,
when I watched streams on Twitch, Guild Wars 2 gameplay PvP streams, certain streamers may have put the camera to be about half of their screen, so I think we're being fairly generous.
What?
But we can make some adjustments.
I will say, all right, Cal's time as a content creator for Guild Wars 2 was before I ever made my first guide video. So I don't know who he's bashing right now, saying certain streamers had their cameras half their screen. You guys will have to tell me if you've been in the community longer than I have.
All right. Let me see if I can resize these.
Oh, you know what? I have a question. Did they ever show the max range of the ranged spear auto attack? Did anybody see that? I don't want to go back through the whole thing for that, but I'm not sure if they showed that. I'm curious about that.
When I watched streams on,
I remember when they showed that freaking wall of tooltips on the 1 key.
On Twitch,
so it was off the screen.
PvP streams. Certain streamers may have put the camera to be about half of their screen.
Did they show the ambush? Yes, they did.
Generous.
Nefo
But
says
we
900.
can make some adjustments, I think.
All right. Let me see if I can resize these now.
While Taylor's fiddling with this, I can talk a little bit about the overview of the Necro, and then we'll obviously hop into the skills. So, as we mentioned in the blog, the Necro Spear is supposed to be like a little bit more of an assassin-y type kit, so a little bit more mobility, maybe a little bit more burst than...
So real quick, looking down at the hotbar down there, we've got a sword, a cone, a spiral, maybe a CC, maybe a pull, a ranged button, and not sure what that one is. Maybe it's just a big ground targeted ability.
A lot of existing Necro weapons, which we're going to...
Oh shoot, hey Frosty, I haven't seen you in ages. Hope you're doing good.
See with the... Or we'll probably go in order, so it'll be a little confusing because some of the important skills are on the back half of the bar. But that's fine. We also see some soul shards building up. This is the third hit of the auto attack chain getting it here. But these are generated by...
Okay, so 2 quick thoughts. 1, we can see the soul shards floating around the character there. 2, there is a buff down here. Hopefully there'll be a better way of displaying it, but that's what we can see right now.
All the skills except for this 2-slot skill, and these are essentially life-stealing...
Perfect.
I don't know what word I'm looking for. Implements, objects that...
Slash foes hits up to 3 targets. Slice foes hits up to 3 targets. Stab foes and chill them hits up to 3 targets. Soul shard, chill, more damage. So every 3 hits gives a soul shard and chills.
Are consumed by the 2 skill to lifesteal, and they do increased lifesteal damage against low health targets and increased healing while you're low health. So
I remember when we saw the Necro preview, I specifically mentioned, this all looks cool. I hope there's some kind of UI element down here. I specifically said I hope they do not have the thing buried in the the stuff down here. For example, what's a good solution? Deadeye Malice, is it called? You could tell I don't main it. They've got like pips up here above their endurance bar. That would be perfect for soul shards. You could just like put those up there. Like, just, something, like, right there that's not going to be buried. Like, right now, these icons, for anyone who's like, Muck, you're being silly about this, mine go behind my map, okay? It's getting really rough at endgame with a number of icons that they have shoved down here. Mine literally go behind the map.
you can kind of create situations where you're on low health and your enemy's on low health. You should find yourself with the advantage, because if you can generate some soul shard, then you'll be able to fire off your 2 skill, do a decent chunk of damage, also get some good life stealing back. The auto attack also does a little bit of chill here on the end, obviously get some life force, and create that soul shard. Nothing too crazy. But we can move on to the 2 skill, which is called Perforate.
I think the problem is that it's weapon specific, not class specific. Sure, but what you could do, like, okay, for example, for Scourge and Reaper and Core, there's a Shroud Bar type thing over here. There's space up here. On Ranger, Druid has a bar there. Soul Beast and Untamed have a button there. So if Ranger had a Soul Shard mechanic, they would just need to make sure to have it be like a little bit higher than where the Druid bar would be if they were a Druid, and boom, problem solved. Like, you are right, but at the same time, that is something that could easily be worked around in development.
And this is the skill that consumes all of your active soul shards. So other attacks from your auto or the 3, 4, 5 or your shroud skills, none of those things will consume the shards, so you can build them up to this kind of big moment of power with Perforate, which also does increase damage against low health foes. So that on top of the...
So 20% bonus damage if they are below 50% health. Also does bonus damage per soul shard, up to 3 targets, 300 range.
The soul shard execute damage, you can potentially create some pretty big burst with...
I like the graphic
build
of
up 6 soul shards, Perforate, big damage against low health foes. And we'll see a little bit later in the kit that there are some ways to recharge this skill as well, so that you'll have even more opportunities to set up that burst and go in on low health targets and really punish them. But next we have skill 3. We talk about skill 3, which is
daze your target and gain life force and soul shards. If your target is using a skill, the daze duration's extended and you gain additional life force and soul shards. Oh my god, it's like a counterspell mechanic. If you have a number of soul shards above the threshold when you activate this skill, your target is also immobilized. So if you have 4 or more shards, it's a root. And if you hit them in the middle of a skill, it's a 1.5. Oh my god. Okay, if they're not in the middle of a skill, it's a quarter-second daze. If they're in the middle of a skill, it's a 1.5-second daze. So it's 6 times longer. Now, 1.5 seconds, but still. 250 CC.
The meta for skill names for spears is that one-word names are now, in vogue. We're not doing alliteration as much anymore. We want some cool verbs for skill names. So here we have Addle. This is a disruptive skill where it's going to daze your target. It's going to generate some life force. It's going to give you some soul shards. If you strike a target that is using a skill, you're going to get more of all that. So more soul shards, more daze duration, more life force. We're also going to see that if you already have a number of soul shards, this skill will also immobilize. So if you have 4 or more soul shards, pressing this button will guarantee immobilize. You'll still get the daze. You can still get the bonus effect daze against enemy using a skill.
They talk too slow. Yeah, okay. Last time I did one of these, I did it 50% faster. I usually watch at 2x speed. I'm weird like that. There was a lot of people in the YouTube comment section that were like, I couldn't understand it at 1.5. So this time, I could watch it at 1.0, but it's a 2-hour-long broadcast. And I got a lot I want to get through today, so anything to trim that down a little bit. So we're watching it on 1.25. So it's 25% faster than normal cal.
But also gives you that mode to set up your final burst with Perforate. So potentially a nice little disruptive element. Poured in. Well, we'll talk about that skill right now. We're going to get the teleport on skill 4.
Okay, pause. Isolate. Throw a spear at your target. If it strikes a foe, inflicts Vulm and Chill, and you may reactivate to teleport to that foe. It's 1200 range and unblockable. Teleport to the foe marked by Isolate. Recharge Perforate and gain 3 soul shards. Gain additional soul shards if there are no enemies nearby. So if you throw this and it hits someone, you can hit it again, teleport right on top of them. You have 3 shards, and you can immediately hit your 2 key for the burst. However, that if you're starting the fight right there, then you're just doing your 2 with only 3 shards out of a max of, 6?
This is Isolate. This is a ranged throw a spear at your target, and it will mark them, and you can then reactivate the skill to teleport into your target. And the extra hook to this skill does some Vuln, does some Chill, but it also, if you target an isolated foe, that's the name, but a foe who has no allies around of their own, you're going to get some bonus soul shards when you teleport in. The other nice thing about the teleport here is that it's going to recharge Perforate, so you can fire off Perforate, then throw Isolate, pour it in, recharges Perforate, or it's just more of a guarantee that any...
I wonder on which character is going to be the first one that we see uses their second hand for this 2-handed weapon.
Anytime you want to pour it in on somebody, you will have access to your final burst skill with Perforate. You'll generate some soul shards. If they're isolated, you'll get the cap of soul shards immediately, then you can fire off your burst with the 2. One nice bonus of this skill as well is that it will recharge itself when you exit Death Shroud. This gives like 1 extra angle for a lot of fun resets on this hit, where you obviously have the 2 reset by the 4. The 4 is reset by Shroud, so we can see Taylor pressing all his buttons here and potentially create some pretty exciting burst combos where you can fire off your 2 skill multiple times in a row, generate some soul shards multiple times in a row, actually weave your shroud burst in there, and then come back out, have another opportunity to maybe port on a new enemy, or go on the same one and recharge your perforate again, and just keep unloading damage. Finally, we have the final skill on the kit, which is Extirpate, and this is a...
Is that a real word? Perform a wide swing that removes boons from foes and negates the next few boons applied to the... Negates boon application. That's interesting. We've never had that. Gain soul shards and might for each foe struck. Okay. Does some damage. Gives you might. Gives you soul shards. Does 3 stacks of extirpation on the target, which blocks 3 boons, or it wears off after 4 seconds. And it can hit 5 targets. So it removes 3 boons, and then blocks the application of up to 3 more boons. The most needed of which in PvP is stability, of course. So in total, this can remove 6 boons on 5 targets in front of you from the equation. Actually, is it in front of you? It says perform a wide swing, but it also labels it whirl.
A sweeping AoE attack that's going to give you some might.
Okay, so it's all around.
And generate some soul shards for each target hit. And it's going to apply a new debuff that is specific to this skill. It's called Extirpation. A very lovely noun version of the word. But the way that this debuff is going to work is that it will negate incoming boons, but it's stack-based. So it's kind of similar to Winds of Disenchantment we've seen on Spellbreaker, but that is just as long as you have the debuff, you have the boon debuff. This is a stack-based version of that, so it will prevent a number of incoming boons.
What did their chat say about this?
This applies, say...
Sheesh, CMC teaching us English. Winds of Disenchantment. Who? Oh, that sounds fun. What? Boon immunity? This is the worst thing you could do. Please don't. Oh, that's fun.
3 stacks. The next 3 boon applications on that target, if you have the debuff, will be negated. And they will just do nothing.
Real quick, I'm reminded...
so you can power through that if you want.
There we go. I'm reminded, in my time in World of Warcraft... one sec.
Build nerds rejoice.
Heck yeah, Rob. Thank you. In my time in World of Warcraft included when Death Knights first were added. And when they were first added, they got this skill, and I think it was called Festering Strike, and it attacked heal over times. It fought against, it basically would do debuffs that, prevented the application or removed heal over times that were on the target, and then it would, turn them into dots. So imagine, I hit you, and the next time you get regen, you poison yourself. It was like that. And after a year, they just removed it because they tried balancing it so many times, and it wasn't fun to play. Well, it was fun to play as a Death Knight. It wasn't fun for anybody else. But you were basically just like a druid killer in that game because they excelled at heal over times. Was it Necrotic Strike? It might have been. But the first version of it went through a lot of iterations. But it's kind of funny because this is really similar to something I saw just get removed because they were like, I give up on this. We can't balance this.
To get a bunch of boons from, especially World v World, we feel that this is going to be a little bit less impactful just because there's so many boons that will remove these stacks. But potentially more.
Also, just throwing it out there, Necromancer is getting another weapon that has nothing to do with necromancy.
In PvP situations, you can...
Don't get me wrong, I like it. I'm not saying they need to change it. I think it's funny at this point.
Boon rip, get some of that boon negation, and really focus that target down while they're unable to get, prot or regen or whatever. Obviously, this is a pretty powerful effect. It's something that can be fairly scary. We're going to be keeping a close eye on it during the beta, see if the number of stacks is right, if the full negation is right. Should this end up being similar to what we did with Disenchantment in World v World, where it is just a duration-based adjustment. But we are starting with the most powerful version, and we'll probably see how it plays, see if we need to adjust the number of stacks, or, what we need to do to make sure this mechanic is not oppressive while still feeling impactful.
All right, real quick, my thoughts on this weapon after going through everything. In PvP, it might be tricky to stick to your target. You throw the thing, you teleport to them. There's a moment that you can do some damage, but then they can run. And unless you follow it up with something else, like maybe Chill to the Bone or something like that. If you use this on a Reaper, after you port in, you're gonna need to do some kind of follow up to keep them from getting away. Problems that may ensue. The soul shards. They really need a better UI element for this. Right now, it's looking like Elementalist pistol, which is awful to keep track of unless you've used it so much you can do it all internally. But if you're like newish to LE pistol, it's really rough keeping track of it and not making mistakes because it's just hidden in the sea of icons, and that's how this is. I would love to see a UI element for this. Additionally, the boon thing. The boon thing could very easily become hella problematic, which is what he was just talking about. And he's saying, like, yeah, if this ends up just rolling people in the... Because I imagine you're in a World v. World blob, and you clash in with another blob and pass each other, and you look down at your buff bar, and it's like, yeah, the next 17 boons that hit you are going to be negated. And you're just like, what? And, like, you can't recover for a while, and then they just hit you again.
Well, it is pretty exciting. Mark that one off of the preview teasers, because it is the unique debuff, or whatever Taylor called it when he was making these teasers. I believe that's all we have to talk about on Necro.
Yep, sounds good.
So we can hop over to the... What are we
Presumably
doing
your blob could also have a necro. Yeah,
Guardian.
I'm saying, like, if you've got a few of those spear necros in your group, it could you could end up with a big stack of that, assuming it stacks above 3.
Make sure to hydrate if you're watching. Or not watching. If you're just listening.
All right, Guardian.
Wow, we have blue icons too?
Yeah, we had a lot of colors with these icons. They're pretty good. So Guardian is a weapon that is going to be kind of a hybrid. It has some supportive elements, but it also has damage capabilities. Kind of calling back to old, maybe World v. World Guardian playstyles, where you had like damage-oriented stats, but you also did some support to the group. It's kind of where we're going, like almost like Hammerish. Of Hammer, you know, less CC, but a bit more healing, condition cleanse, that type of deal. So we can start with the auto attack, which a lot of people realized. This was what we were talking about when we were talking about a
Daybreak Slash. Swing your spear, send out a wave of light in front of you that damages enemies and heals allies. 350 range, so short. Well, you could say long melee range or short range, but it's a AOE healing auto attack.
Yeah, old fan favorite coming back. It has a cone auto attack on it. So that's obviously like the old staff auto. Everyone loved it. And so, you know, pretty basic auto. But it's also going to heal allies in the wave.
Did they love it?
So this golem is on my
loot
team.
Stick,
damage.
loot stick,
you can see
loot
it's also
stick,
getting a
loot
bit of
stick,
heals.
loot
So
stick
just
is
by
back. The boy.
autoing, you're gonna like do some decent damage. Also get some team support. Pretty good. Then we can move on to the 2 skill, Helio Rush.
Charge forward, strike enemies, damage allies you... damage allies. Heal allies you pass through. Upon striking an enemy, your next spear tag is illuminated. Illuminated is allies you pass through are healed for more and gain boons. Does damage, does healing, does double healing if illuminated, does resolution. Your next spear tag is illuminated. Max count 2. Oh, it holds charges. Okay.
Helio Rush, you're going to charge in a direction and hit enemies. And it will give you Illuminated if you hit an enemy. So Illuminated is Guardian's like little mechanic attached to the weapon. Basically, the 2 through 5 all have little bonuses while you're Illuminated, so you want to use your skills in kind of unique ways, almost, to guarantee those like little conditions are met so you can get Illuminated and get some value out of it. So Helio Rush is also going to heal enemy or allies you pass through. So if you pass through an enemy and then also get an ally, you'll do pretty well, and then if you use it while illuminated, the heal will be stronger, and you'll also gain, what is this? Resolution. That is the name of the boon. And so, moving on to the 3 skill, we have a Gleaming Disc. You'll spin around and strike enemies, and after a short delay, do a burst that will damage them again. It's also going to give you some might to allies, and if you're illuminated, it's going to grant fury to allies and also blind enemies. See there, that was the illuminated version, the basic version, and illuminated. Moving on to the 4 skill is going to be Solar Storm.
Throw a spear above the targeted point. The spear explodes and rains shards that damage enemies and remove conditions from allies. Your next spear attack is illuminated if you're within range of your own shards. So it cleanses 2 conditions in an area and damages enemies.
You're going to throw your spear up in the air, then it's going to break into pieces and crash down. It's going to damage enemies, and it's going to cleanse conditions from allies. So you can throw it up, do a lot of damage, a lot of hits. And so if you get hit by one of your own shards, that is how you illuminate yourself. And if you're illuminated, when using the ability, you'll rain down more shards.
Pays to stand and fire confirmed.
Fantastic.
This is Luminance. Oh my god.
And so going on to the
PTSD.
fifth skill, this is the symbol.
Symbol of Luminance. Places the symbol of... Oh my god. For those that don't know, I was streaming Brutal v Rising this morning, and I fought this guy for 4 hours to beat him. I did beat him. And one of his attacks is, "This is Luminance!" So I've been hearing that, like, that's just ringing in my head right now. Places the symbol of Luminance on the ground, knocking back enemies on initial cast. While active, the symbol grants resistance to allies that don't have it already, and inflicts weakness on enemies. While standing within the symbol, your spear attacks are automatically illuminated and do not consume illuminated. Okay.
Called Symbol
4
of
seconds
Luminance.
of resistance per
You'll
person.
place it on the ground, doing a short CC to everyone you hit with it, and it's going to grant resistance to allies and weakness to enemies that it hits. And then the special part about this
CC.
is if you are in the symbol, you will be automatically illuminated and then like illuminated while you're in the symbol. So you can use all your skills while you're in the symbol. You don't have to worry about those little conditions they had before. They'll all give the illuminated bonus.
So 4 seconds of
You can
spam
see,
any
kind of
other
use it
skill you
down.
want while illuminated.
Pretty good art. This is probably the most unique symbol we've ever made, right? And you can
Our
see
team is crushing it with the spears.
the art.
I'll say this. I like that symbol for 2 reasons. 1, it does look nice. It does look good. 2, it doesn't look so thick that it's going to mask other things. Like, I think if there's like a red circle that's within that, you'll still see it. And I appreciate that.
Pretty good art. And this is probably the most unique symbol we've ever made, right? And you can
Our
see
team is crushing it with the spears.
the art team did such an insanely good job with these spears. I'm so excited to use them.
Just wait until we get to Ellie, guys.
We know. Ellie will blind everyone.
That should pretty much cover the kit for Guardian. As you can see, there's a lot of offensive supports is kind of a good way to describe it. Boons, condition removals, some healing.
Yeah, they mentioned some healing. They mentioned some fury. They mentioned some Condi cleanse. There is a chance that this could get squeezed into some heal support or boon support builds for Guardian for sure. It's just a matter of will you lose anything by taking off the previous weapons, and will you have to find another way to get what you lost in a different location.
But also decent ways to do damage as well. Can you think of anything else, Cal, to mention?
Nothing from me. I think you've given a very illuminating presentation.
Oh
on
my
the
god,
Guardian.
he's been waiting to say that.
Guardian spear.
Alright. So now we can go to Thief is next.
All right. So we have the Thief. Thief's a pretty exciting one, I think. I mean, they're all exciting. That's kind of a lot of the
I'm pretty excited about Thief. This is one of the most unique things in the game, I think.
That was a nice recovery. He was like, oh, this one's exciting. I mean, they're all exciting. Yeah, little, like, it showed bias, then accidentally changed it. This reminded me, really quick, super short story for you. It's worth it. Last month. No, this is not related to it. Last month, me and my wife and my kid, we went to, like, Outback Steakhouse or something like that. It was some kind of, it was like Longhorn. No, I think it was Longhorn. We went to a Longhorn. And we go there, and my wife orders, like, a normal steak. And my kid and I get, like, a steak burger. And the waitress comes over, and she gives us our food. And she's like, oh, what is this? She's the only one that got the good food. And I look at her, and I look down at my steak burger, and I look at her again, and I'm like, you saying that this was not good? You don't recommend it? And then she realized what she said, and she's like, oh, no, it's all good food. It's all good food. And I was like, okay. Turns out both me and my kids' burgers were cooked wrong and also had the wrong toppings. So maybe she was, foreseeing something. I don't know. Foreshadowing.
Yeah, so obviously anyone who saw the preview blog, we kind of gave an introduction to the Thief Spear mechanic. It drew a lot of inspiration from Guild Wars 1 Assassin, for anyone who's familiar with that. The concept of having, Assassin had lead attacks, offhand attacks, and dual attacks. Obviously the terminology doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you have one spear instead of 2 daggers. So the things are different. But the way that it works is that the slot 2 and 3, we can see them with a different green color, just to show their differentiation immediately. Is that these 2 skills will kind of share a state. And the default state is the lead attack state. And once you strike an enemy with either of those lead attacks, it will then flip over both slots into the follow-up attack state. Similarly, striking with either follow-up attack state will flip them over into the finishers, and then using a finisher skill will flip them back to the beginning. So it does give some opportunity to kind of mix and match. The two slot is primarily focused on damage, and the 3 slot is a little bit more utility focused. There's a little bit of damage, but it's mostly utility. We do see this as potentially more of a hybrid weapon. It's obviously very conditioned focused, but we do want to get the numbers right so that you can play it as a power build too. But most of the damage is going to be coming from the 2 slot combo. And you'll mostly be weaving in the 3 skills when you need more utility, when you need some stealth. We'll get to that when we actually start talking about the skills. But for both power and Condi builds, the main damage is going to come from the 2 slot. And one of our goals for the weapon is to kind of give a little bit more of a diverse rotation to Thief, as opposed to pressing the same button over and over again on a lot of weapons. We want to give a little bit more, a few more different buttons to press. And obviously you get different skills pressing 2-3 times in a row. You get 3 different skills. But we do want you to mix in some of the 3s, mix in some of the 4, mix in stealth attack. And we'll probably see that you can still be fairly effective just pressing the 2 skill repeatedly. And that's fine. We're not opposed to that too much. We obviously want you to mix in kind of the full set of skills, but you should have a decent amount of success with the 2 skill. We do want, if you want to optimize, we are expecting that you'll have to weave in the other skills, some of the 3 slots, some of the 4 slots, some of the stealth attack. And we're still kind of tuning the numbers. We'll see how it goes during the beta, but that's kind of our long-term goal for the weapon once we get a lot better, a much better sense of how it's playing out right now. So if you do end up pressing 2 lunch in the beta and you find that way more effective than using kind of a full kit, then we'll probably end up making changes as a result of that.
If spamming 2 is too good, we'll take it away.
That's rambling. Let's hop into the skills. The auto attack is pretty straightforward.
Swing your spear. If your enemy is far away, you throw it instead. Oh, they've got the thing like the ranger. The stealth attack. Attack foes in front of you with a series of strikes, making them vulnerable. The final strike inflicts damaging conditions. If this skill follows a finisher skill, it grants initiative. Damage, vuln, bleeding, poison.
This is kind of similar to the ranger. We have the hybrid auto attack, where if you're in melee range, it does a melee attack. If you're at range, it does a ranged attack.
All right, we're just pointing it out. We are on the 4th class now, and we have not seen anyone use their left hand on these 2-handed weapons. I'm waiting with bated breath.
No attack chain here, because we're kind of expecting most of the gameplay to be around the 2 and 3 slots anyway. So it is just kind of repeated double slashing spear attack, get some bleeding, get some strike damage. Then we can kind of move on to the 2 slot first. We can look at the 3 skills on 2. We have the initial.
The lead attack is a cripple your foe with a quick strike. The follow-up is poison your foe with a sweeping strike. Movement impaired foes are immobilized. And the finisher is falling spider. Strike nearby enemies, inflicting multiple conditions, deal more damage, and inflict additional conditions against controlled and immobilized foes.
Stab. We have Mantis Sting. A lot of the skill names here are also drawing inspiration from Guild Wars 1 Assassin skills, so you may recognize some of those. Mantis Sting, pretty straightforward skill. Stab, inflict some conditions. Bleeding, that's going to matter for the follow-up skill, Entangling Asp. This is a skill that inflicts poison. If it strikes a movement impaired foe, it's also going to immobilize. You also get the movement impairment from the cripple on Mantis Sting. That's another kind of aspect of the chains here on both 2 and 3, where they have conditional bonuses based off what the previous skill in the chain applies. But they're things that are fairly generic, so that if you're playing Thief, it's not hard to get a movement impairing condition. If you want to start with 3 and then swap to 2, then you can still have access to that immobilize. It just won't be as guaranteed as if you start with Mantis Sting and Entangling Asp. Finally, the final skill in the chain here is Falling Spider, and this is kind of the big damage payoff. We see more bleeding, more poison, some vulnerability as well. This is going to do increased damage and increased condition stacks against a foe that is crowd controlled or immobilized. So playing off that both from Entangling Asp or just any CC, obviously Defiant Enemies, this condition is always going to be true. But getting that extra damage for striking a controlled enemy.
For a second.
Let's see. Do I have anything else to talk about? I'll come back to some things at the end. But now we can look at the 3 slot, which starts out with Unsuspecting Strike. And this is a leap, so this is starting off with the kind of utility-focused aspects of the 3 slot. We have a little bit of mobility here. Leap in, deal some damage. This has a high enemy health threshold. This is just a minor callback to the Guild Wars 1 skill, Unsuspecting Strike. But you will deal additional stacks of bleeding as a high health target. But the main value here is...
The second hand is for Ballast. Ballast? Did you mean balance? Ballast? It's a thief, not a boat.
If you need to close the gap, then you can always use this skill instead of starting with Mantis Sting. Second skill in the slot here is Vampiric Slash. This is a lifesteal. It also inflicts weakness, but primarily a little bit of strike damage and some lifestealing. lifesteal damage, lifesteal healing. This will deal increased lifestealing damage and healing against vulnerable foes, playing off the vulnerability from unsuspecting
What was the first two classes they showed? Ranger, then Necro.
strike. Also inflicts weakness because the final attack in the chain here is Shattering Assault. This is a Boon Rip. It's also an evade. It's kind of like the pinnacle.
Wait, how
inflicts
many?
weakness because the final attack in the chain here is Shattering Assault.
Removes one boon. Remove additional boons if the foe is weakened. If the foe is weakened, remove 3 boons instead.
This is a Boon Rip. It's also an evade. It's kind of like the pinnacle.
Dude, Necro 5 get 5, removes 3 and blocks 3 more for a total of 6. This one's 1, but in some conditions it's 3.
Whole utility skill, right? We had Falling Spider as the pinnacle of the damage skills. Shattering Assault is like the biggest value utility skill of the kit. We have the evade, the Boon Rip, and it will also enter stealth, which will allow you access to the stealth attack, which we will come back to later. Some of you may already caught the tooltip when Taylor was hovering over the auto earlier, but we'll come back. So the idea here is that, you know, most of the time you'll be kind of focused on your 2-2-2 combo, but you'll want to weave in the 3 Shattering Assault to get that stealth attack, and get the payoff that we'll talk about in a couple minutes here. Moving on to the 4 skill, we have Distracting Throw. This is a bit more, there's another range projectile, quick projectile. We'll talk about in a couple minutes here.
Going back so I can see the tooltip.
Moving on to the 4 skill, we have Distracting Throw. This is a bit more.
Throw a spear that inflicts condies on your target. If it strikes a movement impaired foe, also inflicts daze. If this skill follows a finisher skill, it counts as a lead attack and grants a bonus to outgoing damage for a duration. Plus 10% to condition damage and normal damage for 10 seconds. 10-second buff giving 10% damage boost to all damage types. So you'd basically do like, you know, 2-2-2 or 3-3-3 or 2-3-2 or something like that. And then this would be the 4th move, which would also be the next lead skill. So if used in PvE, this would absolutely be a mandatory part of the rotation.
There's another range projectile, quick projectile.
10% damage buff.
Throw hits the enemy, inflicts cripple vulnerability,
Kirkle.
and if it strikes a movement impaired foe, it will inflict daze. So the idea here is if you use it twice in a row, you'll guarantee inflict the cripple, inflict the daze. So you can have daze or you can have cripple or immobilized chilled from other sources. That will make Distracting Throw much more accessible daze. But the cool thing here is also, that will stay on the stealth attack and the 5 skill, is that if this follows a finisher skill, so either Shattering Assault or Falling Spider, if your skill is Distracting Throw, it will grant you a bonus to your outgoing damage for a duration, but it's also going to count as a lead attack. So this means you can immediately go into your follow-up attacks. If Taylor has not shown this stuff on the stream yet, he should. I haven't been paying attention. But you can see 2-2-2 into 4. Now we already have access to the offhand attacks. Sorry, the follow-up attacks. And then that kind of speeds up your chain.
The Guild Wars 1
chain,
terminology
and you
there.
can get to their finishers more rapidly. Next up, almost done, but next up we have Shadow Veil. This is
Block the next incoming attack. If you block an attack, heal yourself. If this skill follows a finisher skill, it blocks additional attacks. Huh. That's incredible. I'll tell you why. This is a block with no cooldown. Now, it costs initiative. Anyone who doesn't play Thief, they're basically, you know, this is their mana bar here. But they could just use this over and over and over if they were in some weird situation where they needed to do that. Now, it is important to note that it is... now, blocks are great. It is the worst kind of block, which is that it blocks a attack, not blocks for 2 seconds. So, like, if you raise your block and then some teeny tiny attack, like a ranger pet, hits you and uses the block, and then the big hit then clocks you, you know, the block is like Aegis. It can get consumed by something you didn't mean for it to be consumed by. So timing will be important. But that is very powerful utility in any game mode, having a block on demand almost whenever.
the 5 skill. It's going to be more of that defensive cooldown. It's just a single block that if you block an attack, it will heal you. And the finisher bonus, following a finisher skill, it will block a couple of additional attacks. Each of those will also heal you. So this is kind of your defensive skill of the kit. If you find yourself in a situation where you're under a decent amount of pressure, maybe you use it as your finisher follower. Just get that extra healing, those couple extra blocks.
I'm late. What did I miss? They're deleting
primarily
Guardian.
It's going to be
They
most
gave up
effective against
balancing it.
like those big single hits, blocking an Earthshaker in PvP, for example. And finally, I guess not quite finally, because we can show off the malicious stealth attack as well, but finally we have the stealth attack.
Woo. 21 months. Muckluck pat muckluck bobble muckluck dance in mucklacoo.
Thank you, Cozy. Appreciate the resub. Welcome.
This is Ashen Assault. So this is just going to be a multi-stab, rapid, multiple hits, inflicts a bunch of vulnerability. The final hit here is going to do bleeding and poison. And if the skill follows a finisher skill, so notably following Shatter Assault, which grants you stealth, it is going to refund some initiative. The idea here is that you'll get a decent chunk of initiative back if you are going through kind of full rotation of potential options, just to make it a little bit easier for non-dead eyes who don't have access to a very powerful initiative granting trait. We do want the spear to feel fairly usable by the other thief elite specializations, or maybe you don't have an elite specialization.
So a couple of thoughts here. The third skill in this stealths you. So if you're going to end on that, you'd probably want to do this next for the ambush. The third skill in this one doesn't stealth you, so if you're going to finish on that one, then you would go here and get this bonus after. Very interesting. It's like there's a lot of different ways you could form a chain with this.
Specialization at all. And so this initiative refund is kind of that payoff to keep the combos flowing, keep the chain going. And this is something that, again, we've done some internal testing, but we'll be keeping a close eye on beta in how this ends up flowing, especially for like Daredevil or Spectre, and making sure that it feels like a fairly fluid sequence, that you have enough initiative in order to use these skills fairly often, so that we don't see that massive disparity between Deadeye and other specializations that we've seen with some thief weapons. If you want to hop on the Deadeye, we can see the malicious stealth attack. It is obviously similar to the base stealth attack, but it is going to just inflict some torment based off of the malice stats on the target. Nothing too crazy. Has that same.
Oh, hold on.
Just inflict some torment based off of the malice stats on the target. Nothing too crazy.
Okay, malicious tactical strike. Stealth attack, daze your foe by bashing them with your sword hilt. Your sword hilt? You have a spear. Daze them for longer duration if you attack from behind or they are defiant. Applies vulnerability, consumes all malice when striking your mark to... Wait, hold on. Consume all malice to strike your try to restore endurance based on malice use. Wait, what?
Crazy. Has that same,
Is that the right
same vuln, same bleeding, same poison, same initiative stuff.
Took my spear off, unfortunate.
Oh, he unequipped the spear. You died. That's why I feel like, wait,
but
that's not
it's torment.
right.
That's the bonus for malice.
Hold on, got it.
All right, Taylor's all over it.
You scrub. All right. Malicious Ashen Assault. Attack foes in front of you with a series of strikes, making them vulnerable. The final strike inflicts damaging conditions. If this skill follows a finisher, it grants initiative. Consume all malice when striking your mark to inflict torment and increase the damage dealt. Gives you 4 initiative if you do it after a finisher. And since it has to be stealth, that would mean after the third 3 skill.
Coming soon. All right, I think that's all that we have to talk about with Thief Spear. I guess one final note on the combo mechanic. This is, or the whatever you want to call it. Chain skills, beat attacks, whatever. We did mention this in the blog too, so if you don't want to rewatch the VOD to hear me say this again, feel free to go read that blog. But you are able to press other skills in between chain skills. So if you press Mantis Thing, you can weave in Distracting Throw, and then still follow up with Entangling Ask. That's not going to disrupt the combo. If you do miss your follow-up attack, that is going to break the chain and reset you back to the start. But using other skills is not going to do that. It's just going to be it's going to be fairly generous in maintaining how you are able to keep pressing these buttons, because we want it to feel good, we want it to feel fluid, and we want you to be able to use your other skills without messing that up. So I think that's my last note. Anything you wanted to add, Taylor?
That sounds pretty accurate. Covered everything.
Right.
As much as I appreciate similarity to assassin combos, I'm grumpy for the fact that Ranger got 4 stealth skills at once and Thief got 1. I mean, it's... I mean, honestly, the Ranger ones are all very weak. Like the pounce move in stealth did the exact same damage. It just did 200 CC with the damage. Like it wasn't much. Like the thief stuff is like the ambush move is like 5,000 damage in 9 conditions.
Awesome.
And we can move on to the Taylor block, where Taylor does 2 in a row.
I think first up is gonna be Warrior. Let me get
Warrior.
that ready.
I'm gonna skip.
We're here.
All right, jumped ahead a minute.
spears are equipping a spear pretty useful for the spear demo.
All right.
And it's ranged. Warriors rejoice. We know you wanted a ranged.
So Warrior
Right.
Spear is going to be a ranged power damage weapon. Kind of has more AoE in the kit compared to rifle. And it has a little mechanic where you kind of like put a lot of force into your throws, and so the weapon like splinters, especially when they're closer range and they're right on top of you. So we can see that with the auto attack. It's going to hit multiple targets when it splinters, and the amount of targets you hit is going to scale based on the range you are from them. So they do it.
Is that because you're strong or because you're
can
buying
see
cheap spears?
Scales down.
Well, you're probably
eventually.
buying them in bulk if they're blowing up all over the place.
No, but notably the damage does not change.
Wait,
Yeah,
what was
notably
that
the
range?
damage doesn't change.
And that's true. That's
900?
true for all the
Let's see,
spear
I'm hitting
skills,
all
all the
five
warrior
now.
skills, right?
So a pretty simple throw that you're going to do more cleave if you're close up, but you can still hit them from far away for the same amount of damage. And then we can go on to the 2-skill Maiming Spear. You'll throw your spear at a location and then cause a shockwave at the location of your spear. And then the closer you throw it to you, the bigger that shockwave is going to be. So you can see, throw it right here, pretty big. If I do it farther away, it is a smaller shockwave. So pretty good poke damage here. It's going to be kind of the skill you're always pressing. Account for cleave situations, especially at closer range, like we mentioned. So moving on to the...
Can I get a link to the video? Yeah. Here, I'll put it in the chat right now. Anyone who wants it.
3-skill Spear Swipe. This is going to be a more defensive skill. You're going to kind of like dodge, or you're going to move backwards, evading, and then follow up with like a swipe of wind to knock your enemy away even further.
This seems so weird to me. So,
Um,
you guys are getting a CC that pushes you away, and then you gotta run back in, unless there's an engage on here somewhere. And you're getting a ranged weapon that does most of its damage if you're in melee.
so that's, you know, simple use case, gap opener. Probably useful in competitive modes as well as PvE to help keep yourself at range with the weapon. Then we can move on to the 4-skill Disrupting Throw. You're going to throw your spear in a line in front of you, immobilizing people, and if they're using a skill when they're struck, they'll be interrupted and dazed for even longer. So it's a really fast projectile, so even if you see someone using it at range, you still have a pretty good chance to interrupt the ability you want, as well as it's immobilized, help you line up things like your 2, or even lock them into the 5, which, you know, pretty good segue into that, is called Spear Marshal's Support. You will mark a target, and then after a short delay, a rain of spears will come down to hit them. It will follow them as they move. Don't have a moving golem there, but, you know, trust me, it'll follow them if they move. And it'll do a small AoE.
Just trust me, bro.
As it follows them. So you can see it, like, marks them, and then the rain of spears comes down. So do that, and follow up, or you can even do that first, and then immobilize them by the time it falls. Pretty good. And another cool skill will be your burst skill, Harrier's Toss. You'll jump up and throw your spear at the target location, dealing damage based on your adrenaline level. It is an evade while you're up in the air, so you can throw it.
Evade is always nice.
So this being an evade and damage is pretty good. You'll have 2 evades on the kit, that in the 3, and then a lot of ranged AoE damage with that in the 2. So pretty solid kit for doing damage with the weapon. And then we can go into the Berserker Burst, which in short, you just kind of go crazy and start throwing spears at people. Exactly what every Berserker wants to do.
A flurry of
Where is he
spears.
getting all
Flurry of
those?
spears, wild throw.
He's got like a friggin' golf bag on his back full
Wild.
of spears?
They're crazy. So yeah, that covers, you know, all the skills for Warrior. Pretty simple weapon. There's not a lot of shenanigans going on,
Gatling
but it's going to
spear.
be pretty effective at what it wants to do. So hopefully has a more unique niche in Warrior's toolkit, and people have fun using it.
That's pretty sweet.
It costs $500,000 to throw these spears for 12 seconds.
But you're not done talking yet, because next we're covering the
Yep.
engineer.
Swap
I guess
over
you should
to
switch back.
engineer real
Alright.
fast.
Let's see. What's going on in the chat?
Can you move while doing F1 on Zerker, someone said.
Nothing exciting. Someone wants a shenanigans shout.
That's shenanigans.
Just yell shenanigans at the shout.
It's
What does it do?
It's what every Warrior hates, shenanigans.
Yeah, I don't know if Warrior wants the shenanigans.
All right, NG.
Engineer.
So NG is a lightning rod based weapon.
Oh yeah,
You're
this
gonna
one
be
looked cool in
channeling
the
a lot of
preview.
electricity. It's going to be definitely a melee weapon. Has a decent condition focus, but it kind of like Thief Spear. It also has like hopefully decent power numbers on it. So it's going to be definitely a melee weapon. Has a decent condition focus, but
Jesus, that's a tooltip. It's barely contained in the monitor.
it kind of like Thief Spear. It also has like hopefully decent power numbers on it. So if you really want to play power Spear NG, it should be it should be pretty decent. Something we'll definitely look into to see the viability of both. But it does lean more into the condition role as a condition melee weapon. So you can start with the auto attack, just a simple 1, 2, 3. Does some conditions as you go. But you can see here it mentioned.
First one does bleed and vuln. Second one does bleed
Brands
and
gifted
vuln.
a tier 1 sub to soapbubble_. They have given 10 gift subs in the channel.
Thank you, Brands. Appreciate the support. Amplifying Slice, refresh your focus and bleed your target. Inflict vuln if your target is focused.
And focused, which is part of the 2. The 2 is going to be a dash normally, and if you have a target in range, you'll dash and strike. And you can see it'll apply that buff to them, which means your target is focused. And all your abilities do additional things to focused enemies. So if I focus this golem and then start auto-attacking it, you'll notice I now apply vulnerability as well as part of my melee chain. So better cover conti and just some vulnerability access, pretty good. I don't have a killable golem right now, but this ability comes as a fun.
Leap toward your target, unleashing intense energy on the area if you strike them. Your primary target becomes the focus of your other skills. If a focused target dies, this skill is refresh. Does damage, does burning, and focus. And it's a leap.
When you
700
Mucluck
range.
dance in Mucluck bobble Mucluck pog.
Thank you, Colors.
with it, so in the open world when there's a lot of enemies and the AoE is better, you can kill someone, move on to the next, and keep going like that. This weapon has a decent amount of AoE abilities on it. It has a theme of like having a lot of AoE but also focused on one person. So here you can see that I use the lightning.
Lightning Rod. Prime your Lightning Rod to deal damage to nearby enemies. Focused enemies receive extra punishment. Gain charges for your electric artillery skill. Does vuln, does damage, does more focus damage. Charges per target struck for 14 seconds. Max stacks 12. Electric artillery is hurl the charged rod at a foe, immobilizing them. Foes take increased burning duration and vuln stacks based on your lightning rod's charge. So, first click, you activate the orbiting thing around you, like Aurelian Soul, and after it's hit enemies enough times, it pieces together into Voltron, and then you throw it.
Rod. So it's a 2-part ability. The first part, you're going to just like prime your lightning rod, damaging nearby enemies. It's going to apply vulnerability to people, and then if your target is focused, it's going to apply even more vulnerability. And you're also going to build up charges for each target struck. So I go here, then do that. You can see I'm building up vulnerability, more on this guy than the others. But I have 12 stacks of it that's basically fully charged, so I can reactivate to throw the lightning rod. And that's going to do more damage, or more burning and vulnerability based on how many charges you had, and it's going to deal more raw power damage to your focus target. So do that, charge up.
Thanks to the law comparison, I get it no more than I once did. It was a character in League of Legends that would summon balls, and the balls would orbit around him. So he wanted to be exactly, a certain distance from the enemy. Not closer, not further away. Catalyst has something like that on their hammers right now in game.
You can throw it for some damage. And it's pretty cool because you can turn on the lightning rod and then swap into a kit and then, use that ability there while it's charging. You have to send your spear, and you can come back to it charged and then use it like that. Oh. There we go.
So the lightning rod portion of the spear will continue piecing together.
So the fourth skill will be Roiling Strikes here, CC ability, kind of like a conal CC.
Charge the sky with electricity, launching focused foes and stunning others. It says 732 Defiance Break. I'm guessing what that tooltip has done is it's adding the launch from the one target and the stun on the other target, and it's adding those numbers together. There was some other class we did recently in the I Tried series where it's like daze, but if under this condition, stun, and then the CC said something insane like 800 CC because it was just adding them together.
CC, you'll smack down and kind of electrify the earth, causing it to break up. And you're going to stun people, and if your target is focused, it's going to kind of like do a launch instead. So a bit better CC. So this is like kind of like you're engaged, you see somebody do that, and you can jump in, do all your stuff. Pretty cool looking ability. You know, if you see a group of enemies, you can get a pretty big CC like that. And then we can...
Fippy, thank you. Appreciate using your Prime here. Chad, have you heard about Switch Prime?
go on to the 5 skill, the Devastator.
Traverse the area and unleash lightning around you, directly targeting focused foes a number of times. So it does damage, and if they're focused, does more.
Where you're going to kind of leap at your enemies and then unleash lightning around you. Do it right here. Just a big lightning bolt. Big damage. And if your target is focused and they get hit by this, you'll kind of like mark them for even more lightning strikes. So do that. You can see they get progressively hit more. Does pretty good burning damage. So this is going to do a lot of damage if you can manage to hit it on your focus target, and also just pretty good naturally if you hit anyone with it. So that's kind of like the gist of the weapon. It's not too complicated. It does a lot of AoE damage. You want to get in there, hit people, and also focus the one target you want to take down and make sure all your abilities hit on them.
Seems like the weapon is just a Condi blender.
Have I missed anything, Cal, do you think needs to be talked about the MG weapon?
I don't think so. It's like a... Dang, I didn't think of a funny pun that I could use for this one. Yeah,
It's shocking.
I don't know if it's shocking.
Right? Oh, okay. Okay, never mind.
He's like, no, bad.
A charged discussion? No, who knows?
I'm just gonna keep using this skill to show off like how amazing like our team is.
It's very impressive. Big shout out to the art team. Shout out to all the teams.
Shout out to all
I was
the
gonna
teams
do
that
this
work
part,
on
but I forgot.
skills, yeah.
Like, it's actually crazy. All the teams that help with spears. Like, obviously Taylor and I are here talking. There's obviously other designers on the combat team that work on these. Then we have the VFX team, UI team, engineering team. The editing team put up with all my outrageous names that we'll get to on Elementalist. So thank you. There's a lot. Everyone less than me on it. We would still be confused with.
All right, we're on
OBS
Revenant.
probably, if not for Roy. But moving on to the Revenant.
The Hawk, thank you.
We'll see. It's kind of a torment-focused weapon that also has some decent strike damage. It's kind of a mid-rangey, like 600 range at the moment. We might want to make that a
600.
little bit longer, just so it feels a little bit more.
Abyssal Strike, hurl your weapon at your foe. If you're in close range, you swing the weapon instead. Striking a foe reduces the cooldown of Abyssal Raise once per use.
Like a true range weapon, probably like the 900 range. But we wanted to see how it plays as kind of like that mid-rangey 600 range option. We can see similar stuff on the auto attack where we have the hybrid melee/ranged auto attack depending on your range. Nothing too crazy. We see some dormant. I guess we should start with the 5 actually, because this skill does reduce the cooldown of Abyssal Raise. So what's Abyssal Raise? If you guys read the blog, you're probably pretty familiar with this, but let's talk about it again. Abyssal Raise is the premier damaging component of this kit. Is
oh,
that it
that's
is,
the raise? I thought the raise was the big puddle of spikes.
ground targeted AoE, blast finisher, deal some torment, deal some damage, but it's a thing that kind of stacks up the more you use it. So a lot of these skills on this weapon are centered around making sure you can press
All right, so he's got 5 stacks of this thing, and he's all goopy.
Abyssal Raise more often. So you see you get stacks of Crushing Abyss. You can get
20% bonus damage per stack. So 5 stacks, you can double the damage.
up to 2 stacks per use. So if you hit 5 targets, you'll only get 2 stacks. Stacks up to a maximum number of 5. We didn't want you to get 5 stacks immediately because it's probably a bit too powerful. But you'll see, get 2 stacks, and then the 5th stack. So maybe you need 3 hits to get there, maybe you need 5 hits to get there. But the more stacks you have, the more strike damage you'll get from the skill, the more torment you'll get from the skill. And then we'll see basically every other skill in the weapon gives some amount of cooldown reduction to Abyssal Raise. So the idea is that you have a bunch of charges initially, or a few charges initially, spend those, build up some stacks, then get some resets, and then you're kind of at the empowered version at that point.
Revenants, I don't want to look like this. I'm covered in goop. Untamed to be like, first time.
Not quite at full power on your 3rd use, but 3rd use is pretty strong if you have 4 stacks, and then you're going to be at full power every time you get these resets. You get another powerful ground targeted damaging skill. So now we can go back. Let's go back to skill 2, Abyssal Force. This is a enemy targeted AoE, so throw it at whatever the enemy is. You need line of sight, so no concern with throwing it behind walls or anything like that. But this will give you a pretty good chunk of recharge on Abyssal Raise. Also with like Torment and Chilled as well, so get some synergy with the Torment, that Chill inflicts Torment trait. I'll see a decent amount of Chill on this weapon as well to kind of tie into those Condi builds. But pretty straightforward, low cooldown, bread and butter DPS skill that also recharges Abyssal Rays a decent amount. Next up on the 3, we have Abyssal Blitz. This is a little quick dash. Gives yourself,
And there's the
it's one of the short distance evade skills, most valuable as evading a powerful attack. It also leaves some of these, what are we calling these specifically? Blitz mines on the ground. So as you run, you drop some mines on the ground. These will trigger as enemies run over them, or if they spawn on an enemy, you're going to get that trigger immediately. Inflict some slow, inflict some chill, reduces the cooldown of Abyssal Rays. So obviously very good if something is chasing you. You dash away from them, put some mines on the ground, slows them down, chills them, lets you get escape, reposition a bit better, and then continue the fight. Up next, we have Abyssal Blot. So this is a
unleash gravitational mist forces on your targeted area, initially dealing damage and pulling foes in to the finale. Abyssal Rays' cooldown is reduced for each target you attempt to pull. 150 CC.
Another ground target AoE. It's intended to be a bit more of that CC skill. So
that's the one. I thought that was
ground,
raised when I saw it in the video.
Deal some initial strikes, and then the final strike there is going to be inflict chill and do a pull. Pull all the enemies toward the center. It's also a dark field.
You guys got
so
a caffeine-free gravity well.
There, you totally can. But again, this is going to be recharging Abyssal Rays' cooldown for each target you strike or attempt to strike on the final hit of the pull. The number of enemies in the area at the time is going to give you more Abyssal Rays cooldown reduction. We already talked about the 5, so there we go. Obviously, this is kind of intended to be more like that ramping up. And, as you're fighting a 1v1, it's going to ramp up a little bit slower than if you're fighting a large number of enemies. But once you get up to that maximum potential, that's when you're really going to be able to unleash, potentially a ton of damage, right? Because you have max stacks, fire off an Abyssal Rays, get some cooldown reduction, fire off another Abyssal Rays, maybe use the rest of your skills. Maybe you can fire off another Abyssal Rays after that. And that's a large number of Abyssal Raises that are going to, I guess,
so Abyssal Rays is basically
enemies,
the F1 for Berserkers. Just every other button is raised.
Quite powerful.
Now, I think just a little note you can see on stream, I've been trying to show it off. As you get stacks of the Crushing Abyss, you get a little aura on yourself that kind of grow up. And then on the 5th stack, you kind of become pretty demonic, filled with Abyss energy, I guess we're going with. And so it makes it pretty
demonic.
Obvious.
You look like the
Revenant as well. Like, they're fully charged up. They're
1 sec. There you go. There you go. That's the Revenant. It's freaking Dad from Kids Next Door. So demonic.
So pretty, and it also just looks really cool. That's like the main part. It just looks really cool.
It all looks awesome.
Yeah.
These mines are very threatening, I would say. I don't want to run into them. But I think that's everything for Rev. Is there anything else you want to call out, Taylor?
No, I think that covers.
What?
Jumping ahead a few minutes here. All right, looks like we just started Mesmer.
Dude. Anyways.
Oh, good job.
Yep. So Mesmer Spear is a 2-handed melee power weapon, which, it's kind of weird that Mesmer doesn't have that niche filled already. This is the first weapon, but pretty excited this is going to be it. It's going to feel pretty good to play. So we just go skill by skill. The auto attack, simple 1, 2, 3. Build up some might, weaken on the last hit, kind of siphon your enemy's strength going on. But that's not really interesting. Who cares about the auto? The cool skill is Mind the Gap, which...
Swing your spear in a circle to increase it. Oh, this was the Darius skill. So it's going to do a roundhouse, but you'll do more damage if you hit them right with the edge of it.
Might have surpassed Gormandize as my favorite skill name. There are 2 types of people. One that hate Mind the Gap and want me to change it. They're like, this is the worst placeholder name. And then I got message from so many people being like, this is my favorite. You can't change this. So we're minding the gap here. But basically, you're going to do an AoE around you, and you can think of it as like 2 circles, an inner circle and an outer circle, and you're going to want to hit people with the outer circle around it. Because if you do, you'll gain clarity, which will augment your 2 through 5 skills to have better effects. So there we go, that's what it looks like, and then you can see you have this little eye floating above you to signify that you have clarity. And for those wondering, I saw after the preview...
Alright, so once again, we've got a buff that is going to be hidden down here in icons that on my character currently go behind the minimap. And we've got a thing above your head that you will have a hard time seeing when you're in a group of people in combat. So I'm adding that to my list of things to tweet at them about.
view, there were a lot of like questions about it. So the outer circle does
They
take
did
priority,
see my tweet about the
from
Mesmer
inner
giant
circle.
puddle
So
that
if
blocks
there
a red
is, say,
circle,
someone
so
that's like
maybe.
straddling the line, they'd get hit by both the outer and inner hitbox of it. You'll get clarity, it'll count for the outer. And there are a lot of bosses in the game that like their hitbox is so big that if you are standing right next to them and use this, you'll hit them anyways. But for the smaller hitboxes, it's a pretty good game to make sure you keep spacing, so you can get clarity, which we can see. So for Mind the Gap, if you use it while you already have clarity, it'll give you clarity again and give you some might. So a little might stacking for open world. We don't really want clarity to be like used on the one that gives you clarity, just kind of a consolation bonus here. And minor thing, this like spawns a clone for you. This is your clone gen, as you know a lot of 2 skills do. And you all can read, I believe in you. So we go on to the...
So far, he's said, who cares about autos, and you all can read. Imaginary inversion, evade while preparing a strong attack. If you successfully evade an attack before your strike, your attack will heal you. Remove conditions from yourself if you have clarity. 2 conditions cured.
The 3 skill, Imaginary Inversion, this is going to be your defensive skill. You're going to evade and then do a strike. And then the little tweak here is if you evade an attack with the strike and then hit someone, you will heal. So you're just going to kind of spin around, do that. And I don't have the golems really attacking me, but if I was to evade and be hurt, it would heal me. So kind of like incentivizing to correctly time this as a defensive, not just throw it out for damage. And then if you have clarity while using the skill, you will cleanse conditions. Condition cleanse, kind of something that Mesmer doesn't have a lot of in its weapons. They have Torch exists. So giving DPS Mesmer as a way to cleanse conditions, while pretty niche, would be, you know, pretty good for the times it is good. The skill is not rooted, by the way. You can move while using it. And then we can go on to the 4 skill.
Phantasmal Lancer. Dash at your foe, removing boons from them. How many? 2 boons. Leave a phantasm at your initial location that will dash after a delay, dealing heavy damage and crippling targets. If your phantasm strikes a crippled target, immobilize them instead. If you have clarity, summon an additional phantasm.
Phantasmal Lancer. This is your Phantasm, obviously. It's also a movement skill. You kind of saw it in the trailer. You're going to dash to your foe and boon rip from them if you hit them, and then you'll leave. At your initial starting location, a Phantasm will spawn after a delay and then kind of dash through you to deal damage, crippling people. See there. Kind of move. So it gets pretty fun.
I like
when you
the
have
graphic of
clarity
that. It looks
because
sick.
you'll spawn 2 Phantasms instead, and
Slick.
2 is a
It
bigger
looks
number
slick.
than 1, so that's obviously better. And so you'll spawn at like an X formation and kind of like dash through. It's pretty visually cool. It also has another, because why not?
Dang, some of those clones are hitting the
So
double
they'll
digits.
cripple your target, but if your target is already crippled, it'll immobilize them. So pretty good setup. So you can do that, and then it'll immobilize them, so it'll help set you up for another outer edge hit. And then we go on to the 5, Mental Collapse.
Teleport to your target and release a cascade of psychic energy, damaging nearby enemies. Refresh Mind the Gap. Stun foes struck if you have clarity. So if you have clarity, 3 seconds? 3 second stun. There's 300 CC.
That's as close to Mental Boom as I could get for editing. So it is a teleport, and then you like slam the ground and kind of do an explosion. That will do. So it is a teleport, and then you like slam the ground and kind of do an explosion.
That covers the ground too much. That covers the ground too much. I'm gonna write that down. Alright. Adding that to my list.
Do
It's quick
3
at
strikes of
least.
damage.
True.
And then if you are empowered or have clarity, it will stun as well. So that's pretty
But I don't want the new challenge mode to be do runs with LEs and Mesmers with spears.
good CC for PvE, and obviously a pretty good engage tool for our competitive modes. And then to make it even better and help rotations flow pretty well, this skill will also, you know, like we love our capstone 5 skills to do, reset your 2 skills so you can combo it pretty easily. So you can do that, and then 5, and then do that again. Perfect, yay.
Flower, doily, flower. Got it.
So that's pretty much covers the base toolkit of it. It's all about getting clarity or opening your sharding gun, whatever you want to say.
on an official Guild Wars 2 broadcast. They just talked about Naruto.
Has a nice defensive tool, lots of mobility to be kind of a melee assassin deal for competitive modes. And a lot of AoE cleave damage. That was like main goal for this weapon is AoE cleave. But I can also show the ambush as a mirage. It's going to stab in front of you. Just be more of a DPS cleave tool because you can never have enough damage. It is called Fractured
I like
Glass.
it. Flashy.
So you're going to be kind of like glass mirage shards stabbing with your spear in front of you. And then, so the Mirage Mantle trait will cause you to gain sharpened edges when using the skill, which is a damage multiplier buff. This is kind of another balancing tool.
Okay, so that said that if you do a spear ambush, you get 15% bonus damage for 10 seconds. So if the total damage is enough to be meta in PvE, that's going to be a required part of the rotation.
We can use for Power Mirage. Part of the reason in PvE is that, you know, the base Mirage trait line just doesn't already have like a lot of just pure damage multipliers. So this is another way that we can, you know, give Power Mirage more damage in PvE. So it'll use it, provide a buff. It currently provides like 10 seconds, but you can stack the buff up some more every time you use it. So to give you time to like swap to other weapons, you don't have to be camping.
It stacks. Most buffs that are not boons, you can't stack up their duration. Not all, but most. So that's interesting.
Always, but you do want to make sure you're going back into Spear to, you know, keep that damage multiplier up. Yeah, that should mostly cover Spear. Based around positioning with high damage, mobility, pretty fun. Yeah. You think anything else to say, Cal?
You just
Lancer
press 2 and
Mirage
5 some more
ambushes.
because they look awesome.
It's just so crazy, like how cool this looks.
Yeah, that's awesome. Great stuff. All right, I guess we could talk about Ellie. Do we have to?
Can we just turn the stream off? Like, bye guys.
It's kind of funny because like Ellie guys, counting like Weaver, they had to make, what did they say? It was like 45 skills or something like that. Or wait, no, hold on, 5 for each element. No, sorry, I'm way off. That's 20, and then 1 for each weapon, each combination.
Oh, I'm weaving.
Which is like
It's
26?
over.
26. So there's 26. So they did as much work on Ellie as they did on 5 other classes combined. That's... you ever wonder if they look back and they regret making Elementalist, like, as developers? I feel like this day, they're like, oh, man, I wish we hadn't done that.
Guys.
Yeah, so we're probably about maybe 2/3 of the way through the stream now, because all we have left is Ellie, and there's only 26 more skills to cover, guys. We will obviously be going over all 26 of the skills. But is the Elemental Suppression,
skipped ahead a bit.
the Spear, the long-ranged glass cannon damage-dealing weapon that is not a longbow, but hopefully it is a reasonable replacement for everyone who is looking for this style of gameplay.
Really quickly, for anyone who hasn't been in the Guild Wars 2 community very long, Elementalist, you know, many people make an Elementalist because they want to be a wizard. They want to sit in the back and shoot fireballs. However, there's really not any great two-handed weapons in the Elementalist kit for sitting back and doing that. They're usually forced to get up close and personal. So every time they got new weapons, you know, like when Weaver came out, and then when Catalyst came out, and then it was a hammer, and then when they were getting a new another new weapon, it was something else, and they got pistol, which was like short range. They're constantly like, please give us like a longbow or something. So it's been kind of a meme for ages that, you know, Ellie's want a longbow, and, you know, eventually Guild Wars 2 would give them like a melee longbow. So that's what he's referencing there.
So let's start. Let's just start and fire. Why not? Where should we start?
It sounds so broken.
I think it's just muck it. It's fine.
We just start with the auto attack. Let's just start with the auto attack. Flame spear. Throw a spear at your target.
Yay.
Great. All right.
You can tell with 26 skills, they really kind of phoned it in.
Moving on. Skill 2, we have Blazing Mirage.
Volley of blazing spears.
This is a ground targeted and use the cool jump animation. It's not an evade, but it doesn't lock your animation. Lock your character like the warrior one does, because it's not an evade. So, you know, trade-offs, whatever you want to say. This one, AoE, explosion, burning damage, all the good stuff. It's 1200 range, by the way, in case that was not obvious.
1200.
But next up, we have Seethe. So this
Gain boons. Your next spear skill deals increased damage. Gives you 5 might, a fury, and your next spear attack does 20% bonus damage. Half-second cast on.
is something we talked a little about in the blog. All the 3 skills in all the attunements have kind of 2 different components. They have a small buff that they give to yourself or some utility value that they give to yourself. And then they also empower your next spear skill in some way. So Seethe gives you might, gives you fury. You are seething, so you know you're more powerful in some way. And then also your next
It works for Wolverine.
spear skill will deal increased
Roars in
damage.
anger, gets stronger.
And importantly, this one and the air one, which gives guaranteed crit strikes, we'll get to that later. But these affect all strikes of the skill, not just your next skill. Whereas the Earth skill that we talked about in the blog, which gives daze as a bonus, is always just the next strike because it'd be way too powerful if a multi-hit skill could daze you a bunch of times. But here we're going to see this plays very nice with the volcano that we'll get to because volcano strikes a bunch of times. We want to make sure this bonus actually rewards that.
Cope, mold, Seethe. Dude, that would be so funny. If the 3 skill on fire is Seethe, and then the 3 skill on water was Cope, and the 3 skill on air was mold.
So it is going to affect all strikes from your next skill. And this is only consumed by spear skills specifically. No shenanigans with, like, I don't know, Glyph of Storms or something to get more damage there. It will only be consumed by and only grant bonuses to the spear skills. So next up, skill 4, we have Meteor. There's just one meteor.
Oh.
It's not a shower of meteors, it's just one meteor. Conjure a meteor at the target location. And this is the slot 4s that we talked about during the blog as well, where all of them have kind of this inner radius that rewards you for targeting the skill well. It is going to give you some sort of bonus. In this case, generous. It gives you increased damage. Notably, these skills currently cannot be retargeted. That makes it a little bit too free to get the inner circle bonuses. We'll see some strong ones. Obviously, increased damage is good. The float that we talked about in the blog that we'll get to as well. So you'll actually have to aim these very well, or aim these effectively. Obviously, if you don't get the inner circle bonus, you still get a good chunk of damage here. You still get some damage on the other skills, but you won't get that guaranteed bonus if you are able to hold your mouse on top of your target. And then finally, we have the 5-slot skills. We're going to see
Etch a spell into the ground that creates a violent eruption. Using a number of other skills within this etching completes the spell, unlocking full potential, which we saw in
a lot of patterns in the attunements, and this is trying to kind of simplify the feeling of the kit or the weapon a bit.
So, this is the thing that when we saw the teaser before, I actually added Guild Wars 2. They follow me on Twitter. I added them on Twitter, and I was like, hey guys, I love your descriptions of all the new skills, the new mechanics. Sounds great. I'm concerned about being grouped with a couple of people doing that. We will not be able to see the ground. We will not be able to see red circles from the enemy anymore. Like, imagine there's a Deimos Defile, like an oil, somewhere under that. Good luck. And they did see it, so hopefully that got passed along to someone important, because this is like challenge mode.
Kind of what we see with Firebrand tomes, where a lot of them have similar styles of skills on the same
talk about
button.
that? Good.
Just so that when you go into a new tome, or when you go into a new attunement, you kind of have a general sense of what those skills are going to do, and try to give kind of not a completely linear feel to the weapon, but a more straightforward understanding of how the weapon works. So with that said, we can talk about the first etching skill, and this is etching Volcano. And the first thing I'm going to say about this is that there will be LOD effects, level of detail effects, for everyone except for the Elementalist. The final versions of these are still being worked on, so for the beta, these will all just show a combo ring to enemies and also your allies. You'll see the fire field, while the Elementalists themselves will see this super cool graphic.
That's not a solution. That just means the Elementalists are gonna die more. That's not a... Oh my god. No, that just means the Elementalist isn't gonna see where the oil is. What do you mean?
Around etching. So the idea behind these skills, how they work, the etching itself creates a large area that gives you some personal benefit, doesn't affect allies, but a small personal benefit, and then as you use skills inside...
Come step into my suicide circle.
The spell circle...
Dude, it's like roulette. You'd be doing you'd be taking these guys to Deimos, and it's just like a freaking roulette game, like Russian roulette. You're like, yeah, where's the oil? Nobody knows.
That kind of charges up the spell circle. So we see when you first drop it, you have access to the initial flip over, in this case, the lesser volcano, which you can fire off in a pinch if you need to, but this will be, in this case, it'll last for less time, so it'll fire off less eruption damaging areas and do less damage overall. But once you get the spell circle fully charged, we can see the V effect. Visual effect also charges up as you use skills. It looks super cool. But once you get that full power, you can unleash the ultimate, in this case, volcano.
But you designed a game where we have to see
longer,
the floor.
Fires off a bunch of missiles, deals a bunch of damage. And that's the gist of it. We'll get to the other attunements, obviously, as well. They're all kind of in this similar vein with the lesser version and a full version. And they all have kind of different flavors. We'll see some personal healing. We'll see
I like
CC,
the claw things that come up around the
debilitating
ring.
conditions
That's cool.
as we get to the other attunements. But fundamentally, all the attunements kind of have the same mechanic tied to them. So typically, you'll come into the attunement, drop the etching on.
Hold on a sec. Hold on. I'm taking a screenshot. Let's see. Fun future mini game for Elementalists. On Deimos. Where's the oil? Post. There we go. Excellent.
On the ground, press 2, 3, 4 if you want to, ending with a 3 here specifically so that your volcano deals more damage. But these also charge up through any skill usage. So if you do have, say, Arcane Blast on your bar, that'll give you a charge toward the etching. Or if you want to use auto attacks, that'll give you a charge on the etching. It's pretty easy to charge these up, honestly. We didn't want it to feel too difficult, make it too clunky. So that's something we'll be keeping a close eye on during the beta, is making sure that it's not completely free, but we do want you to have fairly easy access.
I do want to say, because, you know, like, I'm memeing a little bit here. I like the idea of this. The idea of, like, a wizard making, like a little domain, you know, and they're like, when I'm in this zip code, I'm stronger, you know? I have saturated my mana into the ground here, and I just get pumped when I'm in this spot. I know a lot of FF14 players have told me that they've got a class over there called, like, Black Mage or Black Wizard or something like that does the same thing. I like the idea of it, all right? I'm down for that. I'm just concerned about visibility. That's it. I got no complaints about the mechanics.
Access to the full power version of these skills.
Domain expansion.
All right. Should we move on to water, or are you still showing off?
That's freaking Jujutsu Kaisen. Now just imagine domain expansion. Oil everywhere. Bong.
You're already in water.
It's water time.
We're already in water. Moving on. All right. So water, we have the restorative spear. Pretty straightforward. Throw a spear. If it hits someone, you heal yourself a little bit. 1200 range, though. So we'll see a common theme. I'm just going to keep saying 1200 range, because it's 1200 range. But we can move on to skill 2, which is the Ice Beam.
Just for spice, they should have made the Earth one like 300 range. Just have one of them a different range, just to muck with you.
So this is kind of a different flavor of an
That's all
AoE
laser.
attack. Obviously, you need to line up your enemies as opposed to having them all stand next to each other. But we get a pretty cool 1200
Isolate.
range.
Dude, you guys
beam
got Ray of
ice that
Frost.
deals some
You got a
damage,
D&D
and it also
cantrip.
inflicts chill. Honestly, nothing too crazy, but a fairly potent skill.
Why does the other guy always look like he wants to laugh? He likes to smile. Dude, he's the kind of guy you want to bring with you to parties. Or if you're doing your first night on stand-up, you need him front row.
Then skill 3, we have access to Ripple. So this is going to be an evade. We talked a little bit. This is intended to be a little more of a glass cannon type weapon, but we still want to have a little bit of defense. We'll see the water and earth.
Looks cool. I like it.
3 skills provide a bit of defense to yourself. So this is obviously the evade. And dash does some condition removal. And the extra bonus here is that your next spear skill has cooldown, a lower cooldown. Then skill 4 is the inner circle skill of its attunement.
Whirlpool.
I think this might be Taylor's favorite effect.
That does look really cool.
Like, oh my god, guys. Like, it's
We have
I do like
Undertow.
that.
So
Is it a
the
pull
idea
or
is
just
to
damage?
create a whirlpool. Enemies in center are pulled inwards.
And
And
again,
everyone
it
else
does cover
is
the ground, but it's for like
teleported
half a second, so.
But it also slows everyone that it strikes. So pretty powerful CC. You know, sets up for maybe for the 5 skill, which forgive me ahead of time, because I will butcher.
Etching Jockelhop. Wait, Jockelhop? Jockelhop. Hold on. I don't know how to make an O with dots. Define Jockelhop. A Jockelhop, which is pronounced Yo Cool Lap, is a sudden and catastrophic flood caused by a glacial lake breaching its dam and draining. Oh my god, one of them has a word of the day calendar. Are you serious? Yo Cool Lap!
The skill name, but big shout out to the editor.
Can I make it say it? I can't make it say it. Oh, wait, hold on.
Jökulhlaup.
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 Jökulhlaup. Yeah, I remembered it from the magic card. I had that magic card. I always called it Jockalops. Jökulhlaup.
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 Editing team for leading my skill name in
All right,
the game.
Your turn, Cal.
The 5 skill on the water spear is the etching of the Jökulhlaup,
Oh man, I was ready to make fun of him. I think he nailed it.
which is a glacial flood specifically. So we'll see some watery stuff here, and we'll see some ice as well because it is a Jökulhlaup. We'll see here the etching, another sweet-looking spell circle. This one gives you personally a cold healing.
I don't know why I thought it was funny when the water was like whee over the edge of the cliff.
It's also a water field, so you can dash through it with Ripple, get a little bit more healing. And then that'll flip over to the lesser Jökulhlaup, which is going to fire off a, icy wave at your enemies. It's going to heal you. First target struck will heal you a bit more, and the additional targets that you strike will give you a lesser healing. Obviously, we can charge up this etching in the same way as the fire one and all the others. That'll give you the empowered version, which is going to do a bit more damage, and it's also going to have increased healing numbers on there as well. And just for, once again saying it,
the healing weapon if you don't need it for boons.
So I believe that's everything in the water attunement. I'm going to take a quick water break after that, but we will be moving into the air attunement next.
Masterful segue, sir.
Your healer just like, Jökulhlaup, just Hail Hydrate, slaps you with a tidal wave in the back. Skip.
Kicking things off, again, the auto attacks are all very straightforward. We have the Lightning Javelin, thematic skill name, but it does not interrupt attacking enemies like it does in Guild Wars 1, but it
Stacks
is a Javelin of Lightning, so there you have it. Also inflicts vulnerability at enemies 1,200
yell to
range away from
Jökulhlaup.
you. Next up, we'll go into skill 2, another kind of ground-targeted AoE skill, this one called Fulgor. And the way that this skill works is it's similar to Guardian Binding Blade, where it is applying a damage over time debuff that scales with power.
Oh, dude, look how long it's going!
The longer your enemies stand inside of this, the more each tick of the
what?
strike
This is like
will
4
inflict a couple
jacarandas
seconds of
glued
this
together.
debuff. So stack up and up and up the longer they stand into it, and that will follow, maintain. We see the little lightning cloud above the golem that will stick with you as
That's
it
the
rains
2?
lightning down.
Hold on. Create a storm of lightning that inflicts damage over time to affected foes. Duration 4 seconds, but then Fulgor lasts 3 seconds. So does that mean it lasts, like, if it keeps refreshing it, then it'll be 7 seconds? Because, like, the last tick will refresh the 3-second duration?
Down, even after the spell is done, that is as long as the debuff is on you.
It's a 6-second
Moving on to skill
cooldown. That's like
3, we
perma
have
lightning bolts.
Energize. This is an instant skill. Again, more of that utility focus. We just get super speed, so less of a immediately powerful mobility skill as Ripple, but just a burst of super speed, and then your next spear skill will always
Air might be my
strike.
favorite so
Again,
far.
this applies to
Super
all
speed and that fire and forget
strikes
lightning
of
cloud.
of the skill. Namely, if Volcano is striking a bunch of times, all of those strikes will critically strike instead of just the next one.
At Muck, about the domain expansion skills like Ellie Spear and Foggy Swamp from Untamed. I'm just imagining it Untamed like domain expansion, Foggy Swamp. What if the enemy AoEs have priority as a layer? That'd be perfect. That would be freaking perfect. Like, okay, first of all, many enemy AoEs is just a red ring. Just like the ring, it doesn't have filler. It's just the circle. So it'd have to still be visible. For example, using the thing I was joking about, if there was a thin red circle over, like somewhere on this, it might still be impossible to see, even if the red was on top of this, right? You might have to squint at it, and it might take you a few seconds. Too late, you're dead. But for like the Untamed, that would absolutely be a solution. The Untamed is green, and as long as the circle is red, it would be easy to see unless you're colorblind, in which case, well, you well, I guess they're punishing you for that.
Next up, skill 4, we have the Twister. This is one that we saw in the preview video. It looks super cool as well. This is the kind of inner circle skill of the air attunement. Does some damage, does some vulnerability, and the inner circle here is going to be a float. Skill is also a blast finisher, so that's something that could come in handy. You know, if you're playing Catalyst, there are blast finishers. There also have leaf finishers, a bunch of finishers on this kit, so that you can get those triggers, get those extra. What's the trait called? Elemental Epitome triggers, as needed. Then we have skill 5, the air etching, which is the derecho. This is a intense windstorm, you might say. We'll see. This is going to pulse fury.
Derecho. Hang on a sec. Define derecho. Derecho.
Derecho.
Derecho.
Derecho.
Derecho. A line of intense, widespread, fast-moving windstorms and sometimes thunderstorms that moves across a great distance and is characterized by damaging winds.
Yourself and have the similar charging up mechanic as all of the etchings have, and it will allow you to throw out this pretty cool looking, you know, lightningy windstorm that is going to deal some damage and daze enemies that it strikes. So after you initially start with lesser derecho and power up to the full power derecho. I'm pretty sure I'm saying derecho correctly, but maybe some people in chat are just very.
The lesser
right
one
now,
is pretty
I didn't
disappointing
practice it as
looking.
much as I
The
practiced
greater
saying
one looks
Yokel.
kind of cool.
But this effect is super cool as well. All the LE effects are just so good. All the effects on all of them are so good. But I've seen the LE one probably the most.
Nice
and
recovery,
like,
Cal.
Looks awesome. I think that's it for the air attunement. So I'm going to take another water break, because why not?
Earth.
Time
Skip.
left on this stream to talk about the Elementalist
Earth
Spear
does
that is
bleeding.
1200 range.
Does every class get spear?
Can kick
Yes.
things off with the auto attack called Stone Strike. Nothing too crazy. You throw a spear, inflicts bleeding, does some damage. Skill 2 here is the Earthen Spear. It's just a much heavier, much more potent projectile attack that does significantly more damage than the auto attack. It's also projectile finisher and does a pretty significant cripple here. So, you know, we talked about it, this weapon being a bit of a glass cannon. We do see, like, the survivability aspects are going to be some of that. You have the dash and water, but it's going to be a lot of soft crowd control and hard crowd control, where it's going to be more positioning based. If someone is
Something I want to point out that I really like. Oh, I'm not watching this on YouTube, so I can't. On YouTube, I can move it frame by frame. When he pulls back the spear, you see little rocks like pull up out of the ground to the tip of the spear, like he's juicing it with extra weight right as he throws it and it leaves his hand. I love that.
you like right next to you,
Like
you
it's
know,
on
CC
it's
them.
on the auto,
then
but it's a
walk.
really cool animation. I feel like the rocks come out of the ground and stick to the spear
There,
as
the
it's
super
leaving
speed
his
runaway
hand.
type of thing. It's less hard mitigation because we do want this to feel like that glass cannony, long range, 1200 range, big AoE damage, but you know, not a ton of survivability. Enough survivability that you don't just fall over if someone sneezes on you, but it's not going to feel as tanky as some other Elementalist weapons for sure. But one of these skills that is defensive here, skill 3 in the Earth Attunement, is Harden. We talked about this in the blog. This is going to give you a personal barrier and make your next spear strike inflict daze. So this can be
Gara.
obviously any of your skills. The auto attack will daze, the 2 skill will daze. Any spear skill will daze as long as you have this harden buff on you.
Any
We've seen a lot of these
spear
3
skill
skills are also
dazes
very
while
quick
hard.
casting. That plays in very nicely with the charging up of the etching as well. Then moving into skill 4, we have the Fissure. This is the inner circle mechanic here. Kind of similar to the fire one. This skill does a little bit less damage overall, but it gets a damage increase in the inner circle, but also weakness.
Tiny magic rune in the
So a
middle.
little bit more of that debilitating. We get some cripple on here, get some extra weakness in there, and deal some damage.
Crippling foes. Foes at the center take increased damage and are weakened. So the whole thing is cripple. The center is weaken, and the center is 25% more damage.
As long as you're aiming this properly. Should be fairly potent, more of like a disruptive, debilitating skill, more so than a pure damage skill, but it still probably does a ton of damage in some game modes where it needs to. And then finally, we have the final etching here in
Haboob? Haboob! That's not real. Define Haboob. I'm about to get added to a list. Haboob. A violent and oppressive wind blowing in summer, especially in Sudan, bringing sand from the desert. Haboob. Oh my god. There's gonna be a new, I'm calling it now. Someone's gonna make an emote on Twitch called Habooba. And it's going to be the Booba emote, but with Air Stagulkin.
In Earth Attunement,
Boo.
etching
All right, hold on. I forgot to look at what it does. Etch a spell into the ground that unleashes a devastating dust storm. Using a number of other skills with this etching completes the spell. Skills within this etching, unlocking full stuff. Stability. Wait, is that pulsing stability? This is 5 seconds, 1 second stability. If that's pulsing stability for 5 seconds, that would be insane for support builds. I mean, anyone, honestly.
of a Haboob. This is a
I gotta look at their Twitch chat.
devastating dust storm.
Sorry, what's it called again?
Say. It is the Haboob.
Oh, okay.
Haboob.
And for anyone who is unfamiliar, this is a very specific type of dust storm.
Habooba, fist bump. Habooba. I can't
It
breathe.
definitely does it justice. And in a way that doesn't make the game
That's the whole Twitch chat. I knew it.
collapse.
I know you guys.
There was an initial concern here with because anyone who's not heard of the
Yo, it's pulsing
for
stab.
a Haboob, it's like you should look it up.
The
online.
Habooba
It's
giveth.
like kind of this oozing wall of dust that like consumes everything, and that's actually not great to put in the game. But the art
That's so good. That is so good. Chat. That's 1 second of stab, and then 1 second of stab, and then 1 second of stab. That's so good. Because even if you're in some other game mode and someone removes your stability, you get another one a second later when they're trying to follow up on it. That's so good. The pulsing Habooba.
our team crushed it, and we found a way to really get the feeling of that without making everyone's FPS.
The feeling of a Habooba. It's like a great big bag of sand. And it's Earth.
Drop to 0 and make the server fall over. But here we'll see the Haboob, the etching of the Haboob.
He's laughing. He knows. He knows. Oh my god. They're still going at it.
It's going to give you personally stability, no one else.
It's Harry using a
then as
thesaurus
you
for fireball, but for wind.
Charge it up. We'll see that the greater version will do more damage, but the other aspect of this is that as you charge it up, the lesser version is going to do a couple of conditions. We see cripple and blind on there, but once you get up to the fully charged Haboob, that is going to do cripple, blind. I think
He's taking every chance to say it. Like he's going extra to say it more.
Cripple, blind, weakness, and vulnerability, in addition to doing a bit more damage. And you can just see the Haboob oozing over the screen and striking enemies in its path. So that's all of the primary attunement skills. We still have a few more skills to talk about.
I will destroy you with my fully charged Haboob.
6 more, you might say. For water as we set up the Weaver stuff.
Haboob can... This is so stupid. Not you. Oh my god.
Also, again, big shout out to the editing team for going with my skill names, because I'm pretty excited about them.
Mm-hmm.
Let me swatch Weaver on my own screen too, so I can actually follow along. We're going to try to maintain synchronization between the two of us as we talk about different skills. So where are we starting? Fire, water?
We are all grown adults. Well, dude, I'm immature, but I think it's funny hearing Cal try to talk with a straight face, and you could tell he's suppressing laughter because he knows. And that makes it funnier to me.
Fire, water.
All right. So fire, water. There's actually a kind of a shared mechanic to the Weaver skills as well. We're going to see here that they're in a similar vein to the Ore skills, where they're kind of more utility focused, and there's a second bonus effect. So the
2 auras? Gain Fire Aura and Frost Aura.
Frostfire Ward is the Fire Water dual attack. It's going to give you both Fire Aura and Frost Aura. Pretty cool. But then the thing that all of the dual skills do is that they are going to fully recharge the cooldown of your primary attunement. So obviously, as a Weaver, you typically have those longer cooldowns as you swap between elements. It puts all your skills on cooldown, all your attunements on cooldown.
Wow.
So you can't
That's gonna
immediately
be
swap
game-changing.
into the dual attune state. But with these dual skills, you'll kind of have that flexibility. If you swap into Fire Water, use Crossfire Ward.
That's going to be also very high APM, but because you could be like you could be like fire, hit F3 and be air fire, and then 3F3 to be full air really quickly.
You can then immediately go into Fire if you want to. So it's pretty exciting. It's pretty it gives you a lot of room. It's gonna be interesting to see how you play around this, right? Because as you have the offhand attunement, you have the etching available, but then you can also, if you've already used that etching, maybe just immediately use the dual skill and then swap it to your fire state and then start from that etching. There's a lot of flexibility here that these give access to, and obviously they're all like instant low cast skills as
Piano, screw that. We need a grand piano now.
well because they will
With
charge
foot
up your
pedals?
etching. So we felt that this was a really
Guys,
cool
look at me. I'm so curvy. Hi, Cupcake.
mechanic to give to Weaver because it kind of shakes up how their existing gameplay works while also playing into the spear weapon mechanics. So we'll see how it plays. I think it's pretty cool, and we're hoping that it makes it feel pretty clean and fluid to play. And then there's also these other effects that are tied to the skills. So we see Fire or Frost Aura. So where are we going next? Fire, Air?
Fire, air, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. So Fire, Air, we have Galvanize.
Galvanize. Great song. Gain might and super speed. Reduces the recharge of your primary attunement. So I guess all of them do that.
So the idea is that there's kind of like the two small utility pieces, one from each attunement, is what makes up each of these skills. We saw the Fire Aura and the Frost Aura. Here we're getting some might, which is thematically fire. You're also getting some super speed, thematically air, and again, recharging the cooldown of your primary attunement. So next, let's go Fire Earth, shall we? We have
Fiery Impact. 4 seconds of stability. Blast Finisher. Recharge.
Fiery Impact. This is going to grant you stability. It's also going to be a blast finisher, so obviously earth and fire. And then again, reduce the cooldown of your primary attunement. So all of these are fairly utility focused, pretty simple things, but they are playing into the underlying mechanic of the spear, which I think brings a lot of value to them.
Stab while you stab.
And obviously, the effects are non-trivial too. Like getting stability is good, getting frost or fire is good. They're obviously not like crazy damage skills, but they are like useful utility skills that are almost free because you can just swap into your dual attunement, have your other 3 skill if you need it. We still have 3 more to go. Let's go to Water Air next. And the skill is called Elutriate. This removes 2 conditions, 1 damaging condition and 1 non-damaging condition from yourself. So obviously we get some of that. More of the non-damaging from air is the thematics here, and the damaging condition from water, but you'll be potentially cleansing 2 conditions while also reducing the recharge of your primary attunement. So you can continue to unleash your 1200 range skills on your enemies. And next up, we can talk about Water Earth, which is the Soothing Burst. This will heal you while also being
Heal
a blast
yourself.
finisher. So again, some of these blasts are really cool with, you know, maybe primarily the water etching as it heals you, but you can also get some might, you can get some swiftness, maybe a little bit less exciting, but blast finisher.
Some soothingness.
Obviously recharges the primary attunement. And last up, we have the Shale Storm in Air Earth. This is a very short duration projectile hate skill. So it is actually
3 seconds of projectile hate. So not as long. I don't think that's as long as the one from the focus offhand, but it's there.
You know, very, very powerful effect, but it is only a 3-second duration here. We'll be keeping a pretty close eye on this because it is, again, fairly free, making sure the cooldown and the duration lines up. But this is like supposed to be more of that defensive utility-focused skill. Thematically, both air and earth have the projectile hate, so it felt natural to do like this one thing as the dual attunement effect. And that is the last skill on the Elementalist Spear, which is a 1200 range, long range, class cannon, AoE DPS weapon. I think we got it all.
I
Did we miss anything?
think we hit everything, even like ambushes. For every class. That is all.
Wow. First time for everything.
Yep.
Yes, so we're going to wrap up now. How about you start the wrap up, Taylor, because I just talked for a long period of time.
You know, we're going to be having the beta next week, starting June 27th, 9 a.m. PST, and it goes to June 30th, 10 p.m. Pacific. Going to be there, watching everyone play, looking at all the feedback. Be sure to post all your
That's
feedback on the
starting
forums.
next Thursday, chat.
Looking at other social media as well to keep track of all the feedback. Really excited for everyone to get your hands on these. Also want to say, like, everything here is still beta. All the skill effects, art, audio, everything is still able to be tweaked after the beta. All the art, I hope, we know that these icons aren't perfect, but we hope they're a lot better to use than the construction men. So hopefully, you know, we took that feedback from last beta, and hopefully this is a step in the right direction for it. But yeah, I'm just super excited for these weapons. I know every team spent a lot of time working on these, and we're really happy with where they turned out. Like, just big hands to the animation team. You know, just because we have spears underwater doesn't mean we can just port all those animations from underwater. You know, 99% of these spear animations are new, handmade.
What, you're saying we can't just have Summon School of Piranhas and Vampiric Shrimp and Necromancer ties a gravestone to you and sinks you to the bottom of the ocean? You're telling me that doesn't work on land?
These and all the VFX as well. new. It's, and as you can see from Ellie and all the other classes, they're just really fantastic. So I want to give a hand to all the teams that worked on this, and I'm excited for everyone to give it a try.
Flying shark?
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Yeah, Ranger Spear 3 underwater is they turn into like a shark and swim forward really fast for a few seconds. Would be flying sharks.
Well, the animations were still being worked on. We did use some of the underwater spear animations on our land spear skills, and it looks really silly because they all assume you're like floating underwater, so you just kind of like float in the air as you. The multi-stab attack was one that we used a lot for before we got the new animations for those. Yeah, as Taylor said,
I should do a blooper reel with that.
There's so much work that went into these that from the design team, from all the other teams, QA doing a great job of catching all of our bugs, so the beta's less of a mess than it could have been. Animation team, visual effects team. Editing team, narrative team. Like I'm gonna forget some team because I can't remember them all off the top of my head. But literally, like there are so many hands that went into making these spears.
Heisen in the chat. Fix Revenant Spear. It already sucks.
And obviously the expansion as a whole. And it's great. I love working here. I love the team that we work with, the teams that we get to work
Wait, hold on. I wasn't even
with.
watching the center of the screen. Is he
Expansion as a
throwing
whole.
sharks?
And it's great.
I think he's throwing sharks. Kamahawali Wahua Kukaracha. He's throwing sharks.
I love working here. I love the team that we work with, the teams that we get to work with. I feel like I was going to say something else, but then I distracted myself, as is always. So maybe we'll just wrap it up. But big shout out to everyone involved. Big shout out to the players. Hopefully this Spear preview stream lived up to the hype that we built up with our Spear preview blogs and videos. Shout out to the players who've been like so excited about, oh wow, these Spears look so good. But obviously it's a beta. All right, that's all I got. That's the most important piece of feedback. We can wrap it up.
Okay. All right. So I just skipped ahead through the small talk. That is the end of their almost 2-hour-long broadcast that they did today. This is pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Little notes I made. I'll send them this feedback. I don't know if anything will come of it. I'm just a player, just like y'all. I don't have any special treatment when it comes to this. But things that I think are issues. The face. Oh, I didn't even see that. Wow. The things that I think are issues are Necros being able to keep track of their soul shards, Mesmers being able to keep track of their clarity, Mesmer Spear 5 covering the ground entirely, Ellie Spear 5 covering ground entirely for them. That is still blinding for this game. Those are the things I think are like glaring issues. And there may be others, like the Necro Spear 5 preventing people from getting boons might be like a huge issue later on. I don't know. Can add NG focus to the list of impossible to keep track of. It's a big icon floating above the target's head, and if you've only got one target like a boss, you're going to always have it on that one target. So I don't think that one's as bad as the others. I think it will. Wait, hold on. What is the comment? I think it'll be okay as long as Haboob has the ripple covered. They gave Rev and Ellie too much sauce and Warrior too little. That may be why they will come out with a swimwear. Okay. All right. So yeah, that's it. That is it for this. And once again, next Thursday is when the beta starts, where we will be able to try it. If any of you have not participated in previous betas, what they normally do is they give us like an extra character slot or two. And during the beta, you can make a character that is a beta character. Now that character, anything it loots is going to get deleted at the end of the beta. So, use it, know what you're getting into. But that character is able to access all the new stuff, like spears and stuff like that. So, in the past, if you, for example, it kind of takes a snapshot of your bank when it makes the beta characters. So, like, if you have a Ascended Spear in your bank, then any beta characters that you make during the thing will be able to access the Ascended Spear from your bank. So it's a good idea to put things related to the beta, in this case some spears, into your bank so that you can try them out on the various characters and stuff like that. Because in the past, you've not been able to do that late. I think that's it. We went over all the classes. I went over the things that I thought might be issues. Everything else looks pretty cool. And eager to see basically how the numbers are. Because a lot of them, it's just good, like whether or not it'll be viable in like day-to-day gameplay is going to depend on the numbers. Because if it's not about the utility, and granted, some of them gave boons, but none of them gave like an overwhelming amount of boons that it's just like, this is a utility weapon. So it's going to matter on all of them how the numbers are. So yeah, that's it. If you got any other comments, questions, problems, thoughts, concerns, put them in the comment section down below, and I will fight you there.